Good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Gabrielle de Vietri, the Mayor of Yarra, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the Council meeting of June the 1st, 2021. Can I just request that everyone mutes their microphone if they're not talking and unmutes it to talk? Thank you. The Yarra City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional owners and true sovereigns of the land now known as Yarra. We acknowledge their creator spirit Bunjil, their ancestors and their elders. We acknowledge the strength and resilience of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung who have never ceded sovereignty and retain their strong connections to family, clan and country despite the impacts of European invasion. We also acknowledge the significant contributions made by other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to life in Yarra. We pay our respects to elders from all nations here tonight and to their elders past, present and future. Due to COVID restrictions tonight, this meeting is being held online and as usual the webcast for members of the public is being streamed live for members of the public to view from the comfort of your home. I hope this finds you safe and well. I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge how hard it is for many people in Yarra at the moment to be entering this circuit breaker lockdown, and thank you all for doing your part to make sure that our communities are safe and COVID-free as quickly as possible. While we wait for any further announcements for the next couple of days, keep safe and support each other, and remember, if you do feel unwell, there are a number of sites in Yarra and elsewhere to get tested. Tonight in attendance we have Councillor Edward Crosland, Councillor Bridget O'Brien, Councillor Stephen Jolly, Deputy Mayor Councillor Claudia Nguyen, Councillor Amanda Stone, Councillor Herschel Landers, Councillor Sophie Wade, and myself, Councillor Gabrielle de Vietri. We have a leave of absence request from Councillor Anab Mohammed, and I will move that we grant the request for leave of absence. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Crosland, and I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. We have no other apologies from councillors and from...
Mayor, Bruce Phillips, our Director Planning and Placemaking, has taken unwell and he won't be there, and Miss Mary Osman, Manager Statutory Planning, will be in his place taking the questions. So he's unwell.
Thank you, and I'm sorry to hear that. So from council officers, we have Vijaya Vaidyanathan, the CEO, who you just heard from, Brooke Colbert, the Group Manager of Advocacy and Engagement, Ivan Gilbert, Group Manager of the CEO's Office, Lucas Gosling, Director of Community Wellbeing, Gracie Carabinas, Group Manager of People and Culture, Chris Levers, the Director of City Works and Assets, Diarmid McAlary, the Director of Corporate Business and Finance. Standing in for Bruce Phillips today, we have Mary Osman, we have Rhys Thomas, Senior Governance Advisor, and Mel Niku, the Governance Advisor. We come to item 3, which is announcements. Are there announcements tonight to be made? Councillor Jolly?
Thank you, Mayor. Just gone off mute. I just want to make a personal explanation under section 86 and 87 of Local Law 1, the meeting procedure. And basically, since, and it is as follows, that since the motion that we passed, that you and I moved 2 weeks ago at the last council meeting on Israel-Palestine, and it was supported by 3 other councillors, O'Brien, Wade and Stone, and was passed, a well-organised campaign of quite vile harassment actually has been launched against me and those very close to me, including calls in the middle of the night, threats of violence and racist and homophobic and pretty horrible attacks. On your advice last Friday, I've taken this to the council's governance officers and I thank you for that advice. However, as I'm sure you'd agree, elected councillors should be held to a high standard in terms of their words and also their actions. And therefore, I want to apologise publicly at this meeting for using the C word in a tweet responding to some of these people. The fact that some of these people who were upset with that word were the same people involved in this harassment campaign says to me that the protestations were fake. Nevertheless, councillors should be held to the highest possible standard in terms of swearing and, in fact, all aspects of their behaviour. And therefore, I want to unconditionally apologise for using that word. And, Mayor, it will not be used again. Thank you for allowing me to make that statement.
Thank you, Councillor Jolly. Are there any other announcements? We come to item 4, declaration of conflict of interest. Councillors and council staff, are there any declarations of conflict of interest?
Yes, Mayor, it's Rhys Thomas here. I just wanted to declare that my wife is a director of Urbis, who are acting for the applicant in relation to item 8.2 tonight in Victoria Parade and Young Street, Fitzroy. I've played no role in developing the report or preparing the officer advice. My role in tonight's meeting is purely administrative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Any other declarations of conflict of interest? No. Thank you. Okay, item 5 is confidential business reports, and there were no items of confidential business this evening. So we come to the confirmation of minutes for the meeting of May the 18th, 2021. Are there any questions, comments or corrections for that particular meeting? No. Councillor Jolly, you're happy to move it. Councillor Stone, you're happy to second. Thank you. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. We come now to public question time, and we have 3 members of the public here with us tonight for a public question. Public question time allows members of the public up to 5 minutes to ask a question of the council. You don't have to use all that time, and I'll let you know when you reach 3 minutes that you'll have 2 minutes left. So our first person tonight is Kerry Eschberg. Kerry, are you with us tonight?
Yes, Mayor, and I'm sorry that I can't be seen. I've realised that my computer doesn't have that system downloaded.
That's okay.
So
we can hear you well.
But I did put my lipstick on for the night. Okay. Yarra Climate Action Now campaigns to tackle climate change. Approximately 20% of greenhouse gas emissions are caused by transport. So, over the last several years, YCAN has attended meetings, asked questions and made submissions to Council on the subject of bicycle infrastructure and safer provision for pedestrians and public transport users. In May 2019, we made a submission pointing out that active transport is key to most of Yarra's strategic objectives for a healthy, a sustainable, a livable and a connected Yarra. The 2019-20 budget included funding for an integrated transport and parking management plan. However, the focus was on cars rather than cyclists and pedestrians. YCAN requested that funding be diverted to an active transport strategy. Fast forward to March 2020, when a motion put to Council recommending the establishment of an active transport advisory committee was passed and subsequently amended to an active and public transport committee, with the Bicycle Advisory Committee, the BAC, to continue until this new committee had been formalised. The anticipated final meeting of the BAC was held in August 2020, with the new committee to be convened after the election of the new council in November. Now, almost 1 year later, this new committee does not appear to exist, though I did find some draft terms of reference for an active transport advisory committee from March 2020. The BAC is still listed on the Yarra website, with the Mayor and Councillor Landers being listed as being appointed to it in November 2020. However, there are no minutes for any meeting since that last one in August 2020. And there's no listing on the Council website for an active and public transport advisory committee. In addition, Yarra has not produced a new bicycle strategy plan to replace the one which expired in 2015. An unsatisfactory refresh was produced in 2016. Also, way out of date is the encouraging increasing walking document from 2005. The draft budget of 2021-22 lists a transport action plan with the goal of investing in active transport initiatives. The Climate Emergency Plan has as its strategic priority 4 transition to zero emissions transport, which certainly covers active transport, but also has plenty of discussion about catering for powered vehicles, albeit electric. These still use precious pedestrian and cycling space, requiring provision for parking as well as driving and charging. We understand that Yarra has continued work on the Wellington Street bicycle lane and is trialling the Park Street lane to ease congestion on the capital city shared pathway. We support these initiatives and those for electric vehicles, but believe that Yarra urgently requires a more comprehensive plan for providing sustainable, safe and pleasurable ways of moving around the city. I have 2 questions, so we'll do them one at a time. So
Yes.
The first question, what has happened to both the Bicycle Advisory Committee and the proposed Active and Public Transport Committee? The second question, when will we see a new strategy plan covering active transport to replace the lapsed bike strategy? Thank you.
Mayor, in Bruce's absence, could we please redirect the first question to Ivan Gilbert, please?
Yes. So, Ivan, Mr. Gilbert, if you'd be happy to answer that in relation to the governance progress on the active transport committee.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Kerry, for the question. Yes, Bruce Phillips is away tonight ill, and he's asked me to respond to the question in his absence. The work has been done on preparing an active public transport advisory committee terms of reference, and that has been presented to council some time ago, and it was required to have some amendments, and it was sent back to the office to prepare those amendments. The amendments are in a prepared state now, but the matter hadn't been brought back to council due to the lengthy agendas and the request to not have too many items on the agendas, and also the COVID period also created some backlog. But it is ready to be presented to council at a future briefing when that can be accommodated on the agenda. The Bicycle Advisory Committee hasn't met since that time, to my understanding. Yes.
Could I just follow up with a question on that, whether the Bicycle Advisory Committee is intended to meet at any point until the Active Transport Committee is formed, or is the Active Transport Committee formation imminent?
Yes, the Active Transport Advisory Committee is pending the report to Council and its acceptance of the revised terms of reference and guidelines. That could be, work would commence to seek a membership to that committee, so that could occur fairly quickly if that goes to a future briefing and Council.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Councillor Stone?
I was just going to add that I happened to follow this issue up myself over the weekend separately, and I think Mr. Thomas has some timelines that he might be able to offer.
Mr. Thomas, do you have those at hand?
I can do that. If you like, the report is actually ready. There's one final step internally that needs to be completed, but there's no particular reason why that report can't be brought to not the next council meeting, because that's a special meeting, but the following meeting, which I believe is the 24th of June.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. And then the second question was in relation to an active transport plan. I imagine this one would have gone to Bruce as well. Is there another council officer who is able to take this, or should I?
I can
Mr.
take
Gilbert
that.
is
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Mr. Phillips asked me to respond to this question, and he indicated that the active transport plan is currently under development. That's what he's advised me today. I don't have a timeline, but they were the words he gave me today.
I believe that it's intended to be brought to councillors this year, and the idea of it being an active transport action plan rather than a strategy is so that some of those, so that the items in that could be actioned
easily.
relatively quickly and easily, rather than over, spend a few years on a strategy that we might see by the end of the term.
That is my understanding, Mayor. Yes.
Thank you for that, Mr. Gilbert.
Pleasure.
And thank you for your questions, Kerry.
Thank you.
We have Todd Perry, who's here on behalf of Alphington Fairfield Appropriate Development Association. Todd.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. Yes, thank you. I've just had two questions in relation to the public access to Old Heidelberg Road in Alphington. Back in a couple of weeks ago, council sent out a notice to residents, which is great. We really appreciate that. There's the Your Say Yarra, where people or residents can provide feedback back in relation to public access. There's just probably a little bit of confusion within the community at the moment in relation to that. The first one is the ownership of the two titles within Alphington Grammar School. There's one map that one resident's provided from Vic Roads that indicates that Alphington Grammar School or the Greek Orthodox community owns the two titles, and then another resident did a title search and indicates that they're council properties. So I think residents have been in contact with Mr. Gilbert recently about that, but yeah, just like to get some clarity on that. And then the second question is if they're owned, obviously, by Yarra Council, we're just interested to get some details in terms of the licence or agreements or permits that Yarra Council has with Alphington Grammar School with those particular titles. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. I'll direct them to Mr. Gilbert.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Todd, for the questions. Most important at this time. The two parts of land to which Mr. Perry referred to, one known as Lot 2 on a plan of subdivision PS 718349, and according to our records, the council records, that particular property is owned by the Greek Orthodox community of Melbourne. Now that property, if you're walking down the area known as Old Heidelberg Road, would be on your right if you're walking towards the creek, and it's I'll describe it as a sort of a rough kidney-shaped parcel of land. The other parcel of land to which Mr. Perry refers is actually the road reserve for Old Heidelberg Road, and that is it is Crown land, but it's a road reserve, and by default it is under the control of the Yarra City Council. That extends all the way down to and abuts the Darebin Creek at the northwestern end, if I can use that direction, northeastern end, I should say. And to the left of where that road reserve adjoins or abuts Darebin Creek, there is a small parcel of undefined Crown land which straddles Darebin Creek on the grammar school side of the creek, if I can use that term, and on the other side of the creek it's part of the public reserve in the city of Heidelberg. I'm just not sure of the name of it, but someone may know the name of that reserve. So
Sparks Reserve. Yep.
That's right, Todd. Thanks for that. So the road reserve is Crown land and under the control of the council because it's a road reserve, right to and abutting the creek, and the parcel of land immediately on the left-hand side of that, if you walk down to the end of Old Heidelberg Road Reserve to the creek, is undefined Crown land. And the land on the right-hand side of that, I just can't recall who that is owned by. Interestingly, the bicycle track, which is all fenced in, crosses the Darebin Creek at the junction of the Old Heidelberg Road Reserve where it abuts the creek, and it rises up above the road reserve and the creek at that point. Hopefully that's responded to your question, Mr. Perry.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
that's
you,
great.
Mr.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
And thank you very much for joining us tonight with your question, Todd. We now come to Jeremy Lawrence. Good evening,
I think,
Jeremy.
if I may, Mayor, Councillor O'Brien seemed to have a question.
Pardon me, Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ivan. Yes, I'm just wondering, when that report comes back to council, could we please have some information regarding the title searches, etc., in terms of the ownership of the two titles, that lot 2 you mentioned, and the left of the road that's undefined Crown land, to help us in our decision making when it comes to back to council after public consultation. And the other issue I wanted to raise was I think there's been some question in the community about whether or not the information has been correct in terms of the procession of ownership of this the old Heidelberg Road issue. So I think there's some question whether it was Heidelberg Council that handed it off, et cetera, and if we could have some clarity around that, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Mayor, do you want me to respond to that now, or leave it till the report?
If
Fine.
Okay, fine.
Unless the community would like an immediate response.
I can give a very quick comment. In 1953, according to our records, the then City of Heidelberg, which controlled the area at that time, entered into an arrangement with the then grammar school that was there previous to the current one, a licence of that area for about 15 years. Then over the years, I think in the early 1960s, a boundary change occurred, and that part of Heidelberg then transferred to the then City of Northcote. And then, of course, in 1993-4, local government restructure transferred the land over to the City of Yarra. And it would appear from our detailed searches that the documentation somewhere, according to our lawyers and our other searchers, have somehow been lost in the system. So we've recovered all that information through our legal searches and title searches following the queries about the closed access to the old Heidelberg Road. Just that's sufficient, Mayor. And certainly the detailed plan of the ownership of the various parcels of land will certainly be attached to the report that comes to council, if only for a point of clarity, because it is very confusing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. That's fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gilbert. Now, Jeremy Lawrence, you are welcome to unmute yourself and ask your question, please. Thank you.
Hello, Mayor. At the council meeting on the 1st of September 2020, the City of Yarra resolved to adopt parking maximums for Cremorne via Amendment C281 Yarra. What is the status of this amendment? And when does council expect that this amendment will be approved by the Minister and published in the Victoria Government Gazette?
Thank you for that question, Jeremy.
Mayor, in Bruce's absence, if Mary could, if Mary is there and she could pick up the answer, but we did receive something from the state government on 14th of December 2020, and they have asked for some more additions. But in Bruce's absence, I can't give more details. But Mary, if Mary is there, she'll be able to.
Thank you. Ms. Osman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're still waiting for a response from the Department and the Minister's Office with respect to that amendment. So unfortunately, I can't give you any more clarity than has already been provided by the CEO.
Thank you.
And we are chasing it up, and we will bring it up in our update with the Minister for Planning on the Gazette status.
Thank you. And I can ask Mr. Phillips to keep you informed, Jeremy, as to when there might be movement on that. Thank you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Sorry, Matt. Yeah.
Thank you. I believe you may have missed a bit of what I was saying. So just to reiterate to Jeremy that I undertook to keep him updated as to the status of that application. And now we move on to business reports. And at 8.1 we have PLN 0703.02, which is at 640 Heidelberg Road, Alphington. And councillors, would you like a brief report from Mary Osman on that? Thank you, Ms. Osman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As stated, this amendment application relates to land at 640 Heidelberg Road in Alphington, and it relates to a Section 72 amendment to the Plans and Planning Permit of PLN 170703. The application seeks approval for the following key amendments to the already approved development, including the deletion of the education facility, which was proposed to be a primary school, inclusion of a medical centre and increase the floor area of the gymnasium, increase in the apartment numbers from 313 to 431 dwellings, a reduction in the office floor area and specialty shops, an introduction of a liquor licence for packaged liquor, and various amendments to the plans and elevations, including replacement of office buildings in the southeast corner of the site with an apartment building and changes in design and materials, increase in height at the southeastern section of the site from RL 56 to RL 60.99, change in materials to the southwest building, reduction in height to the civic buildings and change in materials, additional articulation to Heidelberg Road, and changes to the community facilities. The key issues for Council tonight in considering the proposed amendments relate to the consistency with the Alphington Paper Mills Development Plan and relevant provisions of the Yarra Planning Scheme. The application was referred to a number of internal and external experts who all generally support the amendment subject to a number of conditions. A detailed officer report is included in the agenda, and based on this assessment recommended that the application be supported subject to the following key issues, being further analysis of acoustic impacts on sensitive uses, further assessment of potential wind impacts, the deletion of the cinema screen facing the village square, increased articulation to the northern wall of the southwest building and east building, additional staff car parking and additional amenities and storage for the community facilities. I'm intentionally being brief, councillors. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Osman. Are there any questions of Ms. Osman at the moment from councillors? Councillor Jolly?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one question. What are the this part of the development is obviously aimed more at commercial and community facilities. What are the requirements of the development plan for the proportion of housing in this section? Mary, please. Ms. Osman, I should say.
Ms. Osman?
Through you, Chair, the proportions, there isn't a specific proportion for the split between commercial, retail or residential. This pocket, as correctly outlined by Councillor Jolly, is meant to be a mixed-use precinct. It was always envisaged to have commercial activity, including retail and office space, but always anticipated that it would be supplemented with residential accommodation as well.
Thank you. Any other questions at the moment? We have a number of people here to submit on the item, and I would like to invite, first of all, Fiona Curry, who represents the Alphington Paper Mill Action Group, to come forward to make your submission. As usual, these submissions afford each member of the public 5 minutes, but you don't have to use all that time. I'll let you know when you get to 3 minutes that you have 2 more minutes left. Fiona, are you with us? I'll move on to our next. Oh, Fiona, hello.
Here.
Hi there.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor. As introduced, I'm Fiona Curry from the Alphington Paper Mill Action Group, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I want to acknowledge the journey this application and the subject site has been on over many years. The inclusion and then the exclusion of the school, the rooftop netball court and now an indoor multi-purpose court, and the community centre are all examples of the developer and community striving to ensure an outcome that meets community and council needs. This application is part of the dialogue that council, developer and community have been enjoying, is one way of putting it, over the past 10 years. APMAG has a number of key points we would like to make about this application. The general distribution of land uses continues to be in accordance with the development plan, And although we are concerned about the reduction in office spaces and increase in dwellings, the lost opportunity for employment, we do believe that this is not a deal breaker on the proposal, as the general distribution of land continues to be mixed use. We are very concerned that the community centre must be designed to accommodate the occupancy of 300 people. I hope this is an error in the calculations or transcription, but no reduction in occupancy is acceptable. The multipurpose court must be served by unisex change rooms. A female game cannot use the male and female change rooms with urinals. They need to both be unisex change facilities. The multipurpose court in this current application has lost the spectator or stage area. This is a great design element, allowing it to have increased functionality of the space and should be retained. The separation of the 3 community spaces into discrete areas reduces the future flexibility and future growth or integration of the community facility. It's unfortunate, but I think that's what we're faced with once we've lost the school in this space. The wind tunnel effects of the outer circle mews needs to be fully considered, and mitigation measures included in the proposal need to be adequate to ensure this space is welcoming and comfortable. It is unfortunate there was not a requirement on Caden to participate in the wind mitigation works as part of their development. Car parking reductions across the site have been a hot issue with new and existing residents. This comment is repeatedly made: when the village car parking is complete, there'll be lots of parking available. APMAG is concerned that it's not the function of the car parking with the village to provide overflow parking for the whole site, but the car parking required in the village is used for the actual users of that suite of buildings. To that end, we are concerned that the Officer report recommends Council adopt a reduction in the car parking ratios to 0.5 cars for each 1-bedroom dwelling, as this car recommendation references the car parking ratio reductions for both the Caden site and the affordable housing units. It is not a valid assumption, as the affordable housing ratios were developed by the accommodation provider with the experience and knowledge of the parking needs of their clients, and the Caden site was a VCAT approval without consideration of the actual car parking requirements. The report also cites that public transport is available in close proximity to site. I'm sorry to inform Council that the Route 546 Melbourne University bus is irregular, does not operate on weekends, and only operates till 7:30 p.m. It could not be called a regular service. Lastly, APMAG would like to ask the Council proceed to issue a permit for this application with the conditions and concerns as noted above. This project is critical to the success of the now named Yarra site, with the services and facilities available for all new and existing residents. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Fiona, for your submission. I think we'll wait until all submissions before councillors can ask questions of submitters or of the council officers, just because we do have a number of submissions. So up next we have Todd Perry, again from the Alphington Fairfield Appropriate Development Association. Todd, welcome back.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity to make a submission in relation to the village precinct amendments. The concept and intent of Alphington Village Precinct is developed as mixed use, as discussed previously with the officer, for not only the residents of Alphington paper mill redevelopment site, but also the broader Alphington and Fairfield communities. This development approach of a mixed-use village is in line with Plan Melbourne 2017 to 2050 and the strategic objective of Melbourne having a network of 20-minute neighbourhoods. The 6 principles of the 20-minute neighbourhood are as follows: a diverse mix of housing, local amenity and public open space, local learning, education, local shopping and health, local public transport, cycling and walking, local employment opportunities. AFADA in part supports the amendment. In other parts, AFADA opposes certain changes proposed. Clause 20 of the Planning Officer's report provides a comparison between the proposed uses based on area and size from the previous amendment application in a table format. I won't go through those numbers in line by line, but effectively it illustrates a diverse mix, supermarkets, specialty retail, food and drink, office, commercial, childcare, gymnasium, medical centre, community space and dwellings and service departments. A medical centre is a positive inclusion and welcomed by the community. Also, the substantial increase in the gymnasium is also welcomed by the community. Putting the positives aside, the comparison specifies that office space is proposed to be reduced by 26% or 2,400 square metres from the previous amendment. This reduction in office space is offset by an increase of 38% or 118 residential dwellings. It must be noted that the original application in May 2018 proposed 281 dwellings. What is proposed with this amendment is an increase from the original application of 53% or 150 dwellings from the original application. Another point to note is the increase in the proportion of one-bedroom dwellings with the first amendment, and even more so with the proposed amendment that we're looking at now, which is more than doubled from the original. Contrasting the one-bedroom increase with three-bedroom apartments, the original application stated 84 three-bedroom apartments. What is now proposed is just 16. The proposed amendment is sacrificing local office space and hence local employment opportunities for a significant increase in residential dwellings. The vast majority of the Amcor redevelopment site will be developed with approximately 2,500 residential dwellings. An additional point is that there is no affordable housing included in this proposal. Alphington has a very high proportion of white-collar workers and very little office space, particularly when you compare that with suburbs such as Richmond and Collingwood. So to reduce the offering of office space for residential would be really detrimental for our local community. The recommendation from AFADA is that local jobs are very important for our community, and with that, the footprint of office space and residential dwellings must remain unchanged from the previous amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd, for your submission on that item. If you could just stay on the line in case there are questions later on, that would be appreciated. And next up we have Ian Hammett, who represents the West Alphington residents. Ian, are you with us?
Yes.
Oh, you've just muted yourself again. Here you are. Good evening.
Great.
I've got you.
Yes, my name's Ian Hammett. I'm Secretary of West Alphington Residents. We're a community group that, I suppose, representing the interests of residents west of the Chandler Highway, right across the road from the Yarra Bend development there. Our little community group, almost all made up of locals who just love Alphington and the river and the Alphington environment. Just as an aside, my own wife used to live on the Amcor site there 62 years ago in Latrobe Street. Anyway, we're not newbies and we're certainly not NIMBYs, and we're not yuppies either, I can tell you that. From day one, all we've really wanted is a sustainable development of the old Amcor site. We seek a development that's sensitive and in harmony with the community that it surrounds. And we ask that the Yarra Bend development be not viewed as a standalone place, but integrated, if you like, into the wider Alphington community. Warrie's in lockstep with other long-standing community groups like APMAG and AFADA. We're on the same page. We may have a difference in emphasis, but only that. We don't have a specific view on or the expertise to comment on all the proposed amendments, but we are totally supportive of those positions advocated by APMAG and AFADA. Specifically, we don't have any position on the amendments in relation to the school or deleting the medical centre, reducing the floor area of the office and adding a liquor licence or replacing an office building in the southeast corner of the site with an apartment building. What we do is we feel very strongly on the proposed amendments Firstly, to increase the number of apartments from 313 to 431. Why? The proposed increase in density of apartments is significantly greater than that agreed to under the DPO, with documented concerns for health and well-being of residents of increased density. Moreover, we've cited no justification for the increase in the number of apartments, up by 31%. I've seen no supporting documentation from so-called experts. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, it's just that we have not been privy to it. Secondly, to increase the height of the southeastern section of the site from 56 metres to 61 metres. Proposed height of the buildings in the precinct are higher than that agreed to under the DPO. War reviews ongoing endeavours by the developer to significantly increase the height of buildings elsewhere in other precincts in the development as a breach of trust with the local community. We don't support any increase in the height of the buildings in the precinct. Indeed, it is a personal fear that the developer may use it as a pretext to increase the height of buildings elsewhere in the site, including the boiler house that overlooks our Alphington community. Once again, we've cited no justification for this. To us, it's just another example of the developer riding roughshod over the local community. Lastly, I would like to thank the many Yarra councillors who have supported us over the years, but particularly Councillor Stone and Councillor Jolly. We thank you.
Thank you, Ian, for your submission. And I will also invite to make a submission, Shane Link. Please stay online, Ian, if we have questions for you afterwards. For the moment, we'll go to Shane. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor and councillors. My name is Shane Linky. I'm a Director of Contour Town Planning Consultants, and I've been the project planner for the Alphington Paper Mill site for the last 7 years. This evening I represent the permit applicant Alpha in relation to its proposal to amend its planning permit for a mixed-use development. The proposal, known as the Village Alphington, comprises a mix of office and retail floor space, 2 supermarkets, a combination of market and affordable housing, serviced apartments, generous public and publicly accessible open space areas, community facilities, childcare, medical facilities and hospitality uses. The Village Alphington mixed-use proposal is the single most important component in the overall development of the former Alphington Paper Mill site. When constructed, the Village Alphington will be the commercial, community, employment and entertainment heart of Alphington. It is important to note that the proposal before you this evening is for an amendment to an existing permit, that in supporting the grant of the current permit, the Yarra Council acknowledged this development as one of the best development proposals it has ever approved. The amendments sought through this application have resulted principally from the unfortunate decision of the state government to not move forward with the years 4, 5 and 6 primary school, which forms part of the current approval. The state government's decision is disappointing and frustrating given the enormous amount of time and effort that both Alpha and this council put into accommodating a new school within the development. However, it not proceeding has allowed for a redesign and relocation of council's community facilities, which will now have the most prominent location and address on the first floor terrace, directly overlooking the village square open space. Alpha had to repurpose the school floor area, which provided an opportunity to introduce a new residential building to the overall development, which in turn has allowed for a much better and more interesting architectural outcome, particularly as the development is viewed from Mills Boulevard, Nelmore Lane and the village square. The proposal before council this evening represents a refinement of the previous design. Fundamentally, the built form massing and composition remain similar, with the exception of the school. The community benefits that the development will deliver remain unchanged. These include a fully designed and developed public square to be transferred to council at no cost, childcare facilities, a flexible and multi-purpose community space, including an indoor sports court, to be built and transferred to council at no cost, 165 affordable dwellings to be owned and operated by a not-for-profit registered housing provider, being Community Housing Limited, streetscape improvements to Heidelberg Road, including provision of a 3-metre wide shared pedestrian bike path and landscaping, a large medical centre, shopping facilities, entertainment and hospitality uses, and substantial provision for end-of-trip facilities and bicycle parking. The proposed amendments to the existing permit maintain a level of generosity in terms of outcomes contemplated by the development plan. That is, it does not seek to exploit the full development opportunity afforded to this site. Rather, it maintains generous separations between taller buildings, provides extensive and diverse open space areas for the public, delivers demonstrable community benefits and an improved urban design outcome. We endorse the Council Officer's report and recommendation and respectfully request that the Council does the same. Thank you.
Thank you for your submission, Shane. And apologies because normally the applicant should go first, but I wasn't aware that you were speaking on behalf of the applicant, so apologies for that slight misordering of the procedure. Next up we have John Lincoln from Link Development Management. John, are you with us? Good evening, John.
Madam Mayor, how are you?
Well, thank you. Please go ahead.
I'm not going to help your order or sequencing because, in fact, I do work for the developer, which is Guy Nelson from Alpha. I'm happy to continue to speak, or should you wish to change procedures, I'm open to that as well.
Please do continue. The last person to submit on this item. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a prepared speech and I'll touch on that, but I think I'd also like to take the opportunity to respond to some of the other comments that have been made by the other submitters, if that's okay as well. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity to present. You have heard tonight from us, and it is in the report, that it's not Alpha's desire to sit here and actually represent, and another 2 years have gone by for us to be able to sit here and then present an alternate development plan for approval by council. And it is regrettable that we do sit here because of the fact that we did have what we considered to be a wonderful outcome with the school and the council facilities, etc., as part of our original plan. That said, there are still many benefits in terms of what we're offering here and community benefits, and you've heard from Shane around some of those, which I'll touch on in a sec. I might just also respond. There was a comment made by Todd Perry in respect of the fact that there is no affordable housing, and you did hear.
Can I make a Mayor? Can I make a point of order, please?
Excuse me, John. Thank you, Councillor Jolly.
Yeah, this is a time for submitters to make submissions, not to answer and respond to previous submissions. This is totally out of order. This is not within the realm of our meeting procedure. And I think if you check that with governance, you'll find that what I'm saying is true. And I'd suggest that you ask Mr. Lincoln to stick to his submission and not, because it's not fair to the previous submitters.
Thank you, Councillor Jolly. I'll check with Mr. Thomas if this is in terms of procedure. Usually I would have had the applicant speaking first on the speaking list. And would they have the right of reply at the end of that speaking list as well?
Ordinarily, that would be the case, Mayor, except that that's the case for the meeting procedures for our Planning Decisions Committee. Because this item has come to a full council meeting, we're applying the ordinary council meeting provisions, which essentially have each submitter provide a submission in the order in which they are received. They're normally asked not to comment on other submissions or direct questions or things to other submitters. They're intended to just make a presentation, which councillors then are free to follow up with questions if they like.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. So, John, I'll ask if you just stick to the presentation that you had intended to make rather than responding to other submissions, and then councillors can direct questions with regards to other submissions if it's appropriate later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to follow procedure, and I will stand by should there be any questions coming out of the conversations later. So as I said, there are a couple of major community assets, the first of which is obviously our affordable housing. We're particularly proud of the deal we've done with CHL Community Housing Limited to present or to deliver 165 affordable housing dwellings. They, like us, are looking forward to the delivery of those dwellings on the site in the very short future. Although the requirement of the DPO was only for the delivery of 125, as I said, our deal relates to 165. So again, we've just tried to stretch beyond what we were required to do in that regard. But we're both very keen, obviously, to see this going, and CHL would have made a submission to this hearing tonight if it was required. But in relation to the community facility, you know, we do recall that design originally started as an open-air netball court, and we've now ended up with effectively a wonderful integrated community asset with a roof over the multi-purpose court in order to create a truly multifunctional space for the community, and we feel that's a very good asset. From Alpha's perspective, we are generally looking forward to providing an asset that will be used by the community, and we are very happy to continue our negotiations and conversations with council and the community around what that asset might be and what it might look like. The other aspect of the community offerings is the Village Square, and again, another community asset that will be delivered at no cost to the council. And we've been working again collectively and collaboratively with the council officers in terms of the delivery of that asset. Finally, just from Alpha's perspective, we remain committed to the journey and to continue to work with council to deliver the exemplar outcomes for the residents of Alphington. If you recall, originally when we started this journey, Guy Nelson, the principal developer, his vision was all about completing the suburb. And we feel that what we've provided here actually meets those objectives of completing the suburb. I thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for your submission. Councillors, are there questions of any of the submitters or the council officers? Councillor Wade?
Yeah, just a quick question for Ms Osman. I know this has been thoroughly fleshed out with the previous council, and it seems that our submitters on the line tonight understand all of this, but just for the benefit of anybody else watching at home, could you just give a quick overview of what happened with the school? Because I know that's, it's still of confusion to lots of people in the community, and just a quick explanation would be good.
Ms Osman?
Through you, Madam Mayor, as I understand, the state government chose not to take up the option for the site. The expansion of the school remained on site rather than as a secondary campus, and therefore there was a hole in the approved development outcome, and I suppose that was part of the catalyst for an amendment to the application. I'm sorry I can't provide much more information that unless the permit applicant wanted to disclose any further discussions that they may have had with the government with respect to that.
Thank you. Shane, is there any further discussions that you wish to disclose on that matter?
Madam Mayor, it's probably better directed to Mr Lincoln, who was involved in those discussions.
I can add to that, Madam Mayor, through you, that the Alpha had a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, with the council to decant the years 5 and 6 students from the Alphington Primary, which was filling up at the time, across to our campus, and therefore we designed a special purpose-built facility to accommodate those years 5 and 6 students. It still today, as you can hear, is a little raw. We don't fully understand why, but the state government then decided not to proceed with that MOU and in fact have constructed portables, etc., on the Alphington Primary School site.
I think there's some clarity required here, Mayor. The MOU was with Department of Education, not with us.
Oh, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that additional information. I have a bit of a speaking list going here. We'll go Councillor Stone, Councillor Landers, Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Jolly. So Councillor Stone.
Thank you to Mr. Linky. You spoke about the opportunity that arose to include some more residential component in this section of the development. You've also heard from submitters who are concerned about the increase in the amount of residential for a range of reasons. And I wondered why that opportunity was taken up, given that this is meant to be that mixed-use commercial community facilities focus here, why you did choose to introduce more residential there.
Shane?
So from a planning perspective, Councillor Stone, the village precinct still delivers a genuine mixed-use development. The dwelling numbers for the whole of the Alphington site are capped under the development plan at a maximum of 2,500. The reality of the situation is that the whole of the Alphington paper mills site will not deliver anywhere near that maximum number. So there was an opportunity to deliver additional houses within the village precinct to fulfil the cap that the development plan anticipates. So there was an opportunity there. It's not going to be a situation where this development and the increase in dwellings proposed as part of this amendment is going to tip the balance over that 2,500 cap. So there was just an opportunity to deliver additional houses. In addition, there is now 165, as John Lincoln has pointed out, 165 of those total number of dwellings will be affordable houses.
So you're saying that within the development plan, the adopted development plan, the proportion of housing, the proportion of commercial uses is still within the range that was adopted by council?
Correct, and that's stipulated within the development plan itself, Councillor Stone.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Next on the speaking list, I believe we had Councillor O'Brien.
I believe it was Councillor Landers.
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Landers.
Yeah, just a small point. Heard from one submitter about unisex toilets and toilet facilities around the netball change room facilities, I believe. Can I just get some clarity on that for that submitter, whether that is going to be resolved or can be resolved?
Do you wish to hear that from Fiona Curry, the submitter?
No, from possibly one of the developers or through...
From the applicant?
Yes, possibly.
Okay.
Yes.
Could I also, just before you answer that, just seek clarification? The term unisex toilets to me suggests that it's for all genders, whereas I think that what Fiona was actually requesting was separate change rooms for different genders. Is that correct, Fiona?
No, that's not quite correct, Madam Mayor. The suggestion I have is that there are two change rooms and they both are suitable for use by either male or female. So they both change rooms have change areas and toilet pans, and neither have a urinal. And what it means is if you have a female netball team playing a female netball team, both teams have a change room, which if you don't have two separate change rooms, you cannot accommodate.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Can we go to the applicant, John? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, from our perspective, we can absolutely accommodate that. We've already prepared a plan very similar to that, and we're happy to put that to the council.
Through you, Madam Chair, may I also just clarify that an existing condition of the proposed recommendation requests that. Just thought I'd clarify that.
So that's it in an existing condition. Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Landers, does that satisfy your question? Councillor O'Brien, did you have a question?
Just very briefly to staff, I sort of feel that almost every council meeting we're attending to sort of bracket creep on this particular development site, and I'm just wondering, is there anything we can do in terms of mitigating that in any way?
I think that's probably a general question for Ms. Osman, which are you happy to answer that?
Absolutely. Through you, Chair, every application that is lodged with Council needs to be assessed on its merits. The site doesn't have a provision in there that once something is approved, it can never be amended. The applicant is within their rights to lodge an application, and that's what they have done, and we've assessed that application on its merits.
Thank you. Councillor Jolly.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is to Ms. Osman. Again, one of the submitters, Mr. Perry, said he spoke against the reduction in office space. In order to, if we agreed with that and we wanted to change that, that wouldn't be able to be done by amendment. That would actually be a refusal because of the fact that we're talking about nearly 2,500 square metres. I think it's 2,400 odd square metres. Is that a correct assumption, that if one was of a view that we don't want to reduce the office space, the job creating office space, the only way to do that would be through a refusal rather than like an amendment to that effect? That's my question.
Ms. Osman?
Through you, Chair, I might not answer that as a yes or no, but qualify it. The process of determining a Section 72 amendment isn't a comparison between what's been approved and is what's before us now better or worse than that. I think it's really important to understand that the development plan encourages the village precinct to deliver between almost 7,500 to 11,500 of commercial floor area. As currently proposed, the application demonstrates almost 10,500 square metres of a commercial floor area. Therefore, it complies with the intent of the development plan. But to be specific with Councillor Jolly's, yes, we couldn't include a condition to say reinstate 2,500 square metres of office floor area. That would result in a huge impact on the development envelope and the presentation of the building. So that's not something that can be conditioned. But I do reiterate, the development as proposed before Council is compliant with the development plan with respect to uses.
Thank you, Ms. Osman. Could I just briefly confirm that the community centre condition as recommended by the council officer retains the 300 person capacity and reinstates that from 200 as is in the proposal?
Through you, Chair, absolutely. The application sought to reduce the number or the occupancy number of the community facility from 300 to 200. It's the officer recommendation that that stay at 300.
Thank you. Further questions from councillors? Councillor Stone. Your microphone is off, Councillor Stone.
Sorry, I switched off the hand instead. One final question on the community facilities, further to the APMAG question. Ms. Osman, you've said that the condition that you've requested is to include gender-neutral toilets for the community facilities. There are 3 spaces for community facilities, 2 on one level, 1 on another. Do you intend that, or is that supposed to be 3 separate sets of toilets and change rooms, 1 for each?
Ms. Osman?
Through you, Chair, a little bit of a longer-winded answer to that. The original planning permit specified the provision of male and female toilets because there already was provision for unisex facilities. That's why the previous amendment was specific in provision of separate toilets. The condition requires male, female and unisex compliant toilets. We don't believe that the condition needs to further specify this. The way that the condition is drafted is a series of provisions that need to be built into the community facilities section or component of the development. That all has to be to our satisfaction, and we do appreciate, as Mr. Lincoln advised earlier, there needs to be some further work on the layouts of these facilities. So we believe that the condition enables that to occur.
So the condition would, sorry to further this, the condition would enable toilets change facilities for each of the 3 spaces, because what community members are telling us is that's what would be needed.
Through you, Chair, as the plans show a series of toilet blocks for each of the 3 spaces, they can be reconfigured to be whatever council deems to be acceptable, and if that is to have all of those areas deemed to be unisex, again, like I said, there's further work to be done in the layout of these spaces, and the condition enables that flexibility to enable that to occur.
Thank you. One final question about the upper level community space, which is a warm shell. I've raised this with you, that the community members would like a kitchen to be included in that. Is that necessary to specify that in this permit, or is that again something that you've been negotiating?
Through you, Chair, the larger space wasn't to be fitted out. That was to be the responsibility of council, but the Alpha team have worked closely with council to ensure that the community facility space is a successful one, and I'm sure there's ongoing discussions that can occur with that, and if that was something that you specifically wish to be included in the planning permit, that could be accommodated with additional words.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Osman. Could I direct a question towards the applicant, either John or Shane, on behalf of the applicant? I just wanted to understand a little bit more the rationale behind the decrease in 2 and 3 bedroom dwellings and the increase of 1 bedroom dwellings proportionally. If you'd be able to provide comment on that.
I'll let John answer that question.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the research that we've been doing and the target market, if you like, the Glenville products that you can see that are being constructed on site at the moment are very much targeted towards the homeowner occupants. So you've got your larger apartments, including your townhouses, etc. Our product is obviously in the high rise, and therefore our product is actually more targeted towards rental type stock as opposed to homeowner type stock. And in that instance, we felt it was appropriate to provide more flexibility around 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms as opposed to going to 3 bedrooms. And this is all about trying to create a diversity of mix of stock on the Alphington paper mill site as a whole.
Okay, thank you. Could I also follow up with just a question around the number of affordable homes? I've heard the number 165, but I recall reading in the report that it was 177. Could you speak to that discrepancy?
I can, Madam Mayor. Within the, there is a building that they are occupying, does have 177 apartments within the building that they are occupying. CHL have purchased 165 contractually. That's what the deal that we've done, and we're just trying to finalise the purchase of the last 12, which at the moment are in excess of CHL's requirements, but we're confident that we will be able to get there.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jolly?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to follow up to your question to Mr. Lincoln. Mr. Lincoln, the new units that you're talking about, are they, you said that you've changed the target market. What is the new target market now? Is it property investors? Is it, what is it? I wasn't really clear on your answer. If you could just state that again for me, please.
No, we haven't sort of changed our target market. What we're doing is responding to the total market that's being constructed on site. And from our perspective, we believe that we're providing a very good rental product. So it may well be that it could be built to rent type of product, or it could be investors that are purchasing our product. And then we've got obviously the CHL product as well, which is affordable housing.
Thank you.
Mayor, I had
O'Brien?
up as well. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Thank you. I'd just like to ask for a little bit of clarification from the community with regard to some of the points made by Alpha Partners. So, Mr. Perry, I'm just hoping you're still online, but my understanding was that 80% of the community were opposed to some of these items that have been discussed. Could you please clarify that for us?
Through you, Mayor. Yeah, the Victorian School Building Authority did an engagement survey and issued a report. So 80% of the community preferred expansion of the existing school campus, and they're not actually constructing portables, they're constructing permanent buildings there. So thank you.
Thank you.
To follow up on that, Mayor, just for the benefit of councillors, this has meant a significant reduction.
Sorry, Councillor O'Brien, this is actually an opportunity for questions rather than statements, so I might just move on to other councillors if they have, unless
okay,
it's
then
a
I'll
question
ask
that you have.
Then I'll ask a question to staff, please. So how much of the Alphington Primary School playground has been diminished because of these permanent structures as opposed to portables? So,
Councillor O'Brien, I might ask that question to be raised at another time because it doesn't relate to this planning application. I believe it relates to the primary school, which is not part of this planning application. So I'll let you take that up at another time outside this meeting. And in the meantime, move on to any other questions that councillors might have. I have another question regarding the childcare reduction of the childcare capacity from 120 to 90, and the reduction of the floor space provided for the childcare facility. John, would you be able to comment on the rationale behind that?
Yes, Madam Mayor. It's just the user that we had originally was looking at 120. That user now, that childcare provider, has now requested only 90 spaces. Actually, I think it'll be 94 spaces in the end.
Okay, and if the childcare capacity was to be increased back to 120 to provide for the community of workers and residents there, would the corresponding floor space have to be, would that accommodate 120, a capacity of 120 people?
Thank you, Madam. No. The requirements obviously are based on a floor area, and at the moment the open space for the childcare sits on top of the multipurpose court. And if we were to apply the ratio, which I think is 4 children per 1 square metre, you actually do come up with 90 children. If we were to try and increase that, we would have to, well, it's either the internal space or the external space. So it might be problematic if we were to increase it now beyond 90.
Okay, thank you. I have another question as well. Last question is just in relation to the proposed height. This is for Ms. Osman. There was some mention from some of the submitters around increased height of some of the buildings, and I just wanted to hear from you by how much the buildings proposed increase the previous or the preferred heights, and what compromises, if any, have been made to mitigate the impact of increased height.
Thank you, Chair. The officer's report goes into quite a bit of detail about this increase in height, and in effect the overall increase is 5 metres or 4.99 metres. The officer has outlined that, yes, it is a numerical value that is taller than the building that is there. However, the building design has also changed with now a podium and a mid-rise section. So the setbacks have increased to the upper levels, and the overshadowing impacts are no greater than what has already been approved. Other than from a building bulk point of view, with the additional setbacks, it will be a little more recessive than having a building that sits hard onto the street boundary. So as an overall, officers are comfortable that the additional height has been designed and integrated well into the building and won't have adverse impacts to the surrounding street.
Thank you, Ms Osman. Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you. Just on that point, so has there been an assessment done in terms of wind and noise assessments?
Ms Osman.
Through you, Chair, the entire development has been assessed against wind and acoustic measures. You'll see that the officer recommendation requires that further work be undertaken. So yes, it has been thoroughly considered.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Okay, in that case, I seek a way forward. I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation with some amendments.
Sorry, I believe a number of amendments were circulated earlier in the day. One by Councillor Jolly.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. I will move the recommendation with some amendments and find a seconder, and then we can consider some amendments.
Is it not protocol that we go with the first amendments that were circulated in the day?
I don't believe that's the process, no. So I am proposing to move the officer's recommendation with an amendment to 33, an additional amendment D, that details of food, organic and garden organic waste for all uses to be inserted into the waste management plan. That there is an additional 1EE, the dwelling mix to provide 14% one-bedroom dwellings, 82% two-bedroom dwellings, and 6% three-bedroom dwellings. That reinstates the previous mix of dwellings to ensure that 2- and 3-bedroom dwellings are also viable rental options for larger families, people on lower incomes in share houses. And I also propose an additional 1R to increase the floor area allocated to the childcare centre back to the previous proposed floor space, which is 975 square metres, and to allow for the provision of 120 people occupancy of the childcare centre. So I believe that all three of those amendments are have been circulated and received in draft by Ms Niku, except for the increase to childcare provisions, which I will acknowledge was an amendment that Councillor Jolly moved but didn't make sense, or my increase to the floor space didn't make sense. So I'm happy, Councillor Jolly, if you would like to move that amendment to increase the number of childcare capacity.
I want to, if you're, I won't take up that opportunity because I want to move a refusal if your motion is defeated, but obviously we have to discuss your motion first, so I'll wait until that time if it comes.
Okay, well, I just acknowledge that was something that you had suggested and
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. I really do.
Through you, Madam Mayor, can I just clarify that the condition increasing the childcare numbers from 90 to 120 is existing condition 37, just for Ms Niku's reference?
Oh, it's an existing condition.
The existing condition reads 90 children, but it's just that condition 37 would need to be amended to increase that to 120 if that's what the amendment is seeking.
Thank you. That's what the amendment is seeking, to 120. So do I have a seconder for the recommendation? So I'm just going to bring up the gallery so I can see everyone.
I think the screen...
Councillor Stone's got her hand up to second your motion.
Yeah.
No, it's to move some more amendments if you accept them.
Certainly. I mean, certainly I'll hear them.
Okay. The first one would be to add to condition 1 DD, Roman numerals 8 brackets E, a new E, it would be to add a kitchen. The effect of that is to add a kitchen to that upper level community space.
I'm happy with that amendment.
And the second amendment would be to add to to amend condition 1B, which begins additional articulation to the northern wall of the East Apartment building, including provision of windows, to add the words to the lobby on level 2, habitable rooms on levels 2 to 4, and corridors.
Thank you. And that seeks to add windows to that northern wall of the eastern building.
To take advantage of a northern wall facing light and sunshine, and yes.
Thank you. I'm happy with that amendment as well.
Okay, good.
Has that all been captured, Ms. Niku?
Yeah, I've got that, Mayor. I just wanted to double check with yours. So you've got condition 1R, 1EE, 33D, and there was an addition of 37. Is that correct?
I could probably check with Ms. Niku that the increase in childcare places is condition 37.
Yes, that's correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll check that and add that in too.
As proposed earlier on by Councillor Jolly. So it would be the wording of that would be contained in an amendment that Councillor Jolly had earlier circulated.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Stone, were you seconding that? Thank you, Councillor Stone. I'm happy to speak to the motion if there are no more other amendments being suggested. No. All right. Firstly, thank you very much to the council officers for putting together this report and for working so extensively with the applicant, and thank you to the applicant as well for working with the community and working with the council to put together something that is extremely complex. I know it's taken a very, very long time, and it's been a lot of backwards and forwards. So thank you very much for your patience and hard work, everyone. I'm really confident that with the additional officer recommendations, with the submissions that we've heard tonight and the amendments that we've managed to incorporate, that this will be a facility that will serve the growing Alphington community for a long time to come. I'm really happy that the council officers have reinstated the community centre capacity to 300 patrons in their conditions, have addressed some of the smaller concerns about urban design and environmentally sustainable design aspects. There's wind tunnel mitigation measures that have been included as part of the outer circle news design. That is an additional condition that the council officers have added, and I'm confident that the bulk and setback of these buildings is adequately mitigated with the slight increase in height that has been proposed in this change. I'm really pleased to see the closed-in multi-purpose community space, the large floor space given over to the gym, and also a childcare centre and medical centre in these facilities. So thank you so much for all of your hard work, and I hope that this amended recommendation has your support. Councillor Stone, would you like to speak to this as well?
Sure. Look, I think this part of this whole site was always going to be the most difficult. It's been quite a painful process, and I hope that there aren't any more major upsets with this particular development, this particular Alphington village. I hear and appreciate the community concerns about some of the changes, particularly the balance of commercial versus residential, and acknowledge that we all want to see more employment opportunities in Alphington. However, this does meet the requirements of the development plan, and it's a development plan that we've signed off on. So doing that, wishing something was different, is not going to, doesn't mean that this is not satisfactory within the development plan. We really do have to acknowledge that. I think the challenge for us has been around the community facilities, and I thank AppMag for putting their forensic lens on that again and drawing our attention to what's needed to make it work. I appreciate Ms Osman's advice that this is a work in progress and the final details are yet to be concluded, but I think specifying a kitchen in that second level at this early stage is wise, so that that can definitely be factored in. And the discussion that we've had tonight around the change rooms and the toilets for the community spaces has been heard by Alpha, it's been heard by the planning consultant, it's been heard by our planners. So there's absolutely no doubt about what the expectations are around those community spaces. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this all turns out, to be honest. I think it's got the potential to be a really vibrant place that's going to contribute something new to Alphington. New is challenging, but it could also be really positive, and I think the way that these community spaces are used could be really exciting. So thank you, Mayor, for your suggestions and moving the motion, which, despite the reservations that community members have, I believe concurs with our development plan, and I support.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Councillor Jolly.
Thank you. Ever since the original development plans were approved, and that was in big measure because of the community mobilisation that took place in Alphington at that time, there's been various attempts by developers to erode these wins, not even to mention the issue with the banks of the Yarra River over the course of the last year or two. But I think this is the mother of all amendments. I think everyone in the community was really sad, upset, angry when we found out there wasn't going to be a school on the site, but one person's disappointment is another person's opportunity. And this is, as I say, the mother of all attempts. I think it was Councillor O'Brien that talked about bracket creep. Well, what we've got now is an amendment to the plan that wants to increase by almost 6 metres, 5.99 metres, the southeast corner, reduce office space by 26%, increase residential spaces by units, I should say, by 118, many of them aimed at investors. The reduction to the size of the childcare and the reduction in the size of the community space, I don't think is going to be made up elsewhere on this site. And therefore, we have to, at some stage, stop rewarding bad behaviour. And we have to say that this is too far. These changes are too much. Their reduction of job-creating office spaces is something that's totally against everything that we stand for as a council. The community facilities the same. And the increase in residential units are overwhelmingly aimed at investors. So on that basis, I think that I would argue that while the amendments definitely from the Mayor and Councillor Stone definitely improve the application, there's no question about that, I think we should actually reject it for the reasons that I've just given. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jotley. Would anyone like to speak in favour of the application? I'll bring it to the vote then. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried.
So I couldn't speak against it either.
Sorry, Councillor O'Brien, it's alternates between speaking for and speaking against. So since there was no other speaker.
I wanted to speak for it, and then I didn't get an opportunity to speak against. Anyway,
I did, Councillor O'Brien.
No, you didn't.
We'll move on to 8.2, which is planning application 16/005.01. It's at 115 Victoria Parade and 28 to 42 Young Street, Fitzroy. We have Mary, who is here to give us a brief overview if councillors would like to hear one. Thank you, Councillor Crosland. I will invite Ms Osman to speak to the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The amendment seeks to amend the existing development plan by way of an addendum that confirms the demolition of the existing car park building at number 28 to 42. Hello? Sorry?
Councillor Joly, if you could turn your microphone off.
Sorry, Mayor.
Not a problem. So, sorry, councillors, it's just confirming the demolition of the existing car park building on Young Street, which is already shown within the existing development plan, and showing the use of the land in an interim manner as a park landscaped area that is open to the public ahead of its future development with a 3-storey building that will form part of the university. The amendment was advertised and 2 submissions were received. Many of those objections were based around antisocial behaviour. A detailed assessment has been outlined within the officer's report, and officers strongly recommend the approval of this amendment, facilitating an area of open space in this area on an interim basis until the university constructs a new university building on the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Osman. Councillors, are there any questions at this stage? I'll invite the 2 submitters for this item. We have Erin Scurry. Erin, are you in the room with us?
Yes, I am.
Good evening.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, councillors. My name is Erin Scurry. I'm an urban planner with Urbis, and we're acting on behalf of the Australian Catholic University in support of this application. As Ms Osman has stated, this is an amendment to the existing development plan, which currently guides the use and development of the St Patrick's campus. The application is to amend the development plan to allow for the interim use of a site that is currently occupied by a multi-deck car park, and essentially use it as an interim open space until the future development occurs on the site. Essentially, the reason for this is that there is limited car parking to be provided on the ACU site, and once the building at 115B Victoria Parade, which is currently under construction, once that is open in a number of years, the existing multi-deck car park will become redundant. So instead of having a redundant car park sitting on the campus, ACU have decided that they would like to demolish it and allow for the temporary use as an open space. Now, this is going to be an interim measure. The site will eventually be developed with the 3-storey building as anticipated by the development plan. But ACU determined that they wanted to use the site in the meantime for a positive use. So the development plan addendum itself establishes a high-level framework for the site's use as a landscaped area, but we will, assuming that this development plan addendum is approved, we will have to come back with a planning permit application that will look to the specifics of the design of the space. There have been just a handful of objections, I believe only 2, which primarily related to security and the potential for antisocial behaviour in the space. The development plan addendum, as we have put forward, does include methods to address this predominantly through lighting, but the actual design detail will be further explored through the planning permit application. On the whole, we believe that this is a really positive use for the site, and we believe that it will be a good measure for ACU to open up their campus to the surrounding neighbourhood, and it will be of benefit to the broader community as well as to the ACU's academics and students and other people who visit the campus. We look forward to working with Council through the planning permit application stage should this addendum be approved. Thank you.
Thank you for your submission. Next up we have Stephen Zatkovitz.
Very well done, Gabriella. It's Zachkiewicz, just in case everyone wants to know. But
thank you very much.
Just wanted to support our submission from, just by way of introduction about Australian Catholic University, I've been involved with the master plan, and I've been with the university for the last 7 years. I'm the Associate Director in Properties and Facilities. I'm really happy to see that the Australian Catholic University is continuing on the journey of improving the St Patrick's campus in a way that really is looking to remain and hopefully improve our presence in the neighbourhood by, as soon as possible, seeing the opportunity to get rid of an eyesore and create a more inviting presence to the northern face of our campus, making it more porous to the community as well as to our staff and students, creating an interim space that can be used for reflection and open space to complement our existing facilities. We hope is that you can see is consistent with our mission and our intent to, as much as possible, create a university that's for Yarra and a beacon for representing the city as it's growing and improving.
Thank you very much for your submission. Councillors, are there questions of the submitters or of the council officers? Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor. Can I just ask, the primary link which goes through the park, is that a cycling pathway or is that purely a pedestrian pathway?
Erin, do you want to answer that? Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. At this point in time, it's just noted as a connection link. The actual design detail will be as part of the next phase, so the actual planning permit application. So I don't think we've gone to that level of detail at this point in time. I believe that most of the pedestrian paths through the university are actually shared paths because there's a number of on pavement parking spaces for bicycles, but the actual, we haven't got to that point yet. But it's definitely something we can consider during the application stage.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? I'll seek a way forward then. I'm happy to move this, or Deputy Mayor?
I'll second after you.
You'll second? All right. Great. Thank you. Just very quickly, this is a very welcome part of the process. We're always happy to accommodate more green open space, public space for people to enjoy in our little inner city municipality. So we really welcome the thoughtfulness of the applicant in deciding to transform this space in the interim phase before it does become what it's eventually going to become. And we really appreciate the kind of consideration of turning it into a green open space. So I endorse this, the officer's recommendation, and hope that it has the support of other councillors as well. Councillor Nguyen?
Yes, thank you to Urbis and ACU. It's very encouraging to see additional open space, albeit for a short period of time. Please consider if it is possible to include a cycling pathway if it makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak against the recommendation? No, in that case, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. We move on now, and thank you very much for coming along tonight, Erin and Stephen. Good night. We'll move on to 8.3, which is extended outdoor dining, and the officer presenting tonight is Simon Osborne. Would councillors like a brief overview? Thank you. Simon. Mr. Osborne. Mr. Thomas, is Mr. Osborne with us?
I can see him.
Sorry, Mayor, just joined. Thank you.
That's okay, thank you.
All right. Good evening, councillors. The report in front of you tonight relates to Yarra's temporary outdoor dining program, which was originally implemented to support the COVID response and recovery of our hospitality sector in October last year. Since its inception, the program has delivered an additional outdoor trading spaces of up to 485 spaces within Yarra, which has incorporated 130 parklets and 8 road and lane closures, of which this report focuses on. Since the 1st of February of this year, the parklet program has been closed to new applications due to the temporary nature of this program. However, footpath trading and footpath extensions have continued to be approved. Earlier in the year, a community and business survey of over 3,200 residents, traders and visitors to Yarra found widespread support for the outdoor dining program, of which you can see in the attached documents. The program has been extended once already from its original finish date of 30 March to its current finish date of 30th of June. But due to strong community support, the additional vitality that these spaces provide to our retail precincts, and as a sign of Council's ongoing support to businesses, a further extension of the temporary program to the 31st of October of this year is being sought. It is important to note that although some funding has been provided by the state government to support the outdoor dining program, the pandemic has caused major impacts on Council's finances, in part due to significant support packages provided by Council, as well as significant losses in revenue streams to the tune of over $1 million over the last 9 months just for the parklet program alone. Those financial implications are outlined within the report. To this point, the report does outline a recommendation that should the program be extended from July 1 through to October 31, that a dynamic cost recovery fee be introduced to both parklets and road laneway closures to offset the cost of the program and the repurposing of public space. A cost recovery fee would also ensure a more equitable distribution of public space, as that those that have spaces would be required to pay for the privilege of having one, which reduces the competitive disadvantage for those businesses that are ineligible due to a number of reasons, many of which are out of their control. An extension of the temporary program through to October 31 would also enable council officers enough time to consider the learnings from this temporary program, as well as to seek feedback from external stakeholders such as PTV, Victoria Police and Fire Rescue Victoria. This feedback will enable us to prepare a permanent parklet policy, which will be brought back to Council later in the year, and if adopted, will give clarity and certainty around all elements relating to parklet spaces within Yarra moving forward. Finally, it is important to note that we do now find ourselves within a circuit breaker lockdown, and it may be prudent of Council to consider the appropriate time at which the proposed parklet and laneway fees are introduced, as well as considering the timing of the reintroduction of the footpath trading fees, which is a separate matter, which was resolved to recommence from July 1 at a March Council meeting. So I think that sort of covers off everything, so happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Wade?
I expect there'll be members of the community who are interested in what the permanent program is going to look like. I know I would be if I was a member of the community. I was just wondering if they have feedback, are they best to kind of just contact their local ward councillor and then we'll pass it on to you, or do you have a particular method by which you're looking for, if anybody has any thoughts on the permanent program, that they can feed that back?
Mr. Osborne?
Through you, Mayor, thank you, and thank you, Councillor Wade. Great question, and we will be seeking feedback from community members and those within the parklet program in particular. I think they have a very unique take on everything. They are the ones that are operating them. There are a huge number of variables and considerations we need to consider for a permanent program. DDA compliance, drainage, graffiti management, awnings, everything, heating, greenery, safety elements, all of those things are currently being considered internally from internal teams at Council. However, I think it is important, definitely, that we reach out to those in the community. At this stage, we don't have a mechanism to seek that feedback. So if community members would like to go through the council laws, then that's absolutely fine. But I believe that we will be setting something up with a communications team to enable community members, that opportunity to provide that feedback to enable us to produce the best policy possible.
Thank you. Councillor Jolly?
Thank you, Mayor. Question to Mr. Osborne. Thank you for the report. It's excellent, and I agree with the recommendations. But I just wanted to, some community members have raised questions about this, and this is more just for the record, for the public record. I just want to ask you a question. I sort of know the answer. There have been occasions, and definitely please do not mention the specific venues or clubs or bars or hotels or whatever they might be. We both know and others know who they are. There have been occasions over the course of the past few weeks where we've taken away outdoor trading from certain venues, certain businesses that haven't used them, even though they've requested them early in the piece. They haven't used them or haven't used them properly, and they've lost those venues. So it's very much, it's a case by case, isn't it? Because we don't take lightly people losing their car parks on particular streets. And if people were to get outdoor trading and then not use it, there have been cases in the past period where we've dealt with that. Would that be a correct assumption?
Through you, Mayor. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Councillor Jolly. Absolutely correct. We aren't in the business of taking away anyone's parklet without due process. So for those that aren't utilising their parklet spaces, we have reached out to those businesses and requested firstly, a notification to say, please use your space if you have the space. And if they decide that they don't want it or aren't utilising that space adequately, that's when those spaces have been removed. So there aren't many of them, only a handful, but you're exactly right. It is important to ensure that we get the right balance, that if there's these public use of public space isn't being used adequately and appropriately, that it should be managed properly, and that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Councillor Stone?
Thank you. Further to that, there have been the odd cases where there's been residential complaints in neighbourhood residential areas, particularly about pubs. Have we, and again without naming any of them, have we taken appropriate action if seen to be appropriate in terms of renewing or continuing those permits?
Mr. Osborne?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Stone. Again, that is something that the compliance team are well aware of, and it will be definitely a case-by-case basis. This won't be a uniform, everyone will be extended automatically. It will be a matter for us managing any of those complaints and weighing up the pros and cons, and then from there deciding whether an extension is offered to that particular business. So you can be rest assured tonight that if an extension is approved, that it will be on a case-by-case basis for each of those parklet and laneway road closure applicants.
Could I ask Mr. Osborne, in relation to this 4-month extension period, if a trader decides to either, given that we're introducing a small fee, decides it's not worth it for them to continue on with their parklet, or if they get to mid-August and they realise that their custom ship has dropped down and they don't think it's really working for them for this time period at this moment, if they were to decide midway through or at the beginning of their this 4-month period that they didn't want to continue with their parklet, does that jeopardise their capacity to be eligible for any potential permanent program?
Thank you for the question. Absolutely not. So there's two parts to that. If a parklet operator takes out the opportunity to extend and pay their fee for the next 4 months, then decide actually after 2 weeks it's just not working out. It's the middle of winter and I'm not prepared to pay. We will provide a refund, a pro rata refund for any days that have not been used. So that's the first thing. Secondly, for any parklet operator that decides that they would like to just pack up in June, which is the free period, and then would like to potentially should the permanent program be adopted later in the year, there wouldn't be any penalty for them to decide to pack up now and then to apply later in the year. So we are trying to be as flexible as possible, understanding that things are in flux at the moment. It's very clear to see, and that we need to be very responsive to the business community. So regarding that program, we're being as flexible as possible.
Thank you for that answer. Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor. In terms of the flexibility, can we build into the temporary policy that if there is an additional lockdown or an extension of a lockdown, that we will reimburse fees coming out of the program as well?
Mr. Osborne?
Thank you, Mayor. I believe tonight there have been some words that have been provided from more recent discussions around a recommendation. So again, should a lockdown be extended past Thursday this week, or should there be any further lockdowns between now and the end of October, I believe that there won't be any issues with Council providing those refunds and looking at reimbursements or further waivers of footpath trading and the parklets. So again, we're trying to be as responsive and understanding of the current climate. So I believe that when we see the resolution tonight, you'll see there are some words that have been crafted that councillors can consider, which sort of speak to your point that, should lockdowns be extended or new lockdowns are introduced later in the piece, that we can ensure that we're not charging traders for anything that they're not utilising.
Thank you for that clarification. Any further questions, councillors? I seek a way forward.
I think we have a submitter on this item.
Oh, pardon me. Thank you, Councillor Wade. We have a submitter, Jeremy Lawrence, on this item. Jeremy, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here, ma'am.
Welcome back.
It's great to see Council discussing how best to use our public land and our streets. Streets Live Yarra applauds Council for extending significant multi-million-dollar support to small business during COVID, including the temporary outdoor dining program. We support the officer report, analysis and recommendations, including the introduction of fees that are reflective of the market value of alternative uses, such as on-street parking. With this method, businesses will be able to decide for themselves whether the outdoor dining area makes commercial sense, and businesses that do not benefit from outdoor dining will no longer be subsidising competitors who do. In particular, we really appreciated the Council effort at analysing the market value of parking bays, putting on the public record that the value, depending on location, varies between $2,000 and $5,000 per year. We hope that Council can extend this methodology to further reforms overall of how we manage on-street parking in Yarra.
Thank you very much, Jeremy, for your submission. As there are no further submissions, I will ask councillors if there are any questions following that submission. Ms. Vaidinath?
Mayor, through you, we have got a plan if the lockdown continues or if the lockdown stops. I'm just reminding the mayor and councillors that would, if you want that on the screen, maybe Melanie Koo should put that extra one. Or will you like to look at it?
I was intending to move an amendment, if that's appropriate.
Yeah.
So there's the officer recommendation in the agenda papers. If somebody would like to move it, I'm happy to move a motion, or if there are, Councillor Wade.
Yeah, I'd happy to move it with that amendment, whether that's put formally or not.
Okay, I'm happy to, if someone else would like to second it, I'm happy to just move an amendment. Councillor Landers, thank you. And I would like to suggest an amendment, which is just in recognition of the significant impact that this lockdown is having, and the I guess quite possible likelihood of an extension of this current circuit breaker, which will have quite an impact on our hospitality industry and our small local businesses. So I'd like to propose the amendment that Council resolve that if the current state government COVID-19 restrictions allow cafe and restaurant dining to resume on June 4th, then footpath trading and proposed parklet fees will commence on the 1st of July 2021 as proposed. And if the restrictions continue after June the 4th, 2021, then no footpath trading and proposed parklet fees will be introduced until August the 1st. So it allows for an extra month to allow our local small businesses to recover from this particular lockdown. Is that acceptable to you, Councillor Wade?
Yep, sorry, that's what I assumed the motion with the amendment was.
Right, okay, yeah, and also you, Councillor Landers. Now, the recommended, there was also a recommended amendment from council officers that I just would like to run past Mr. Osborne. It was a number 2 that the temporary outdoor dining program extends for parklets until October the 31st, 2021, and for road or lane closures until the 31st of December 2021. I take it that that's an amendment as well.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. That is actually outlined in the report itself. The reason for the differing dates there is that the Department of Transport have indicated that further extensions to road and lane closures wouldn't be approved under the COVID permit that we're currently operating under. So that is just outlining, I think, in this stage, being clear that it's around the parklets and the road and lane closures, and we aren't talking here around the footpath trading extensions, which do actually come under the umbrella of outdoor dining. So it's just clarity there around the two items there being parklets and road lane closures that you're deciding on right now.
Okay, thank you. Are those changes acceptable, Councillor Wade?
Sorry, Ms. Nuku, could you just scroll through them again? I thought we were moving all of the officer recommended amendments, but I just want to understand. Could you just scroll down? Yeah, okay, cool. So we're moving it. What you proposed, Mayor, was all of the stuff that the officers prepared?
Yes, so the first one that I spoke to was the extension of the free period until the 1st of August, which is clause number 4 there. And then that one I just asked for clarification around is listed here as number 2, which is that just to clarify that the current outdoor dining program comprises the parklets and the road and lane closures.
Gotcha. Yes, I'm happy with those amendments.
All right. Councillor Landers, happy with those? All right. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Wade?
Yes, I would. I think, as has already been said, the outdoor dining program has brought vitality to our streets. I think we're all really missing that right now. It's pretty sad walking around our streets at the moment, our high streets, which were bustling and full of people dining on the street and visiting their local shops and whatnot until just a week ago, and now seeing all that shut down again. I think this amendment's really important because it recognises the impact that has on our local businesses, particularly our hospitality venues, but also other venues that see the added foot traffic that they acknowledged in their surveys. So I'm really pleased to move this motion, and I'm really looking forward to the permanent program, and I hope comments like Mr. Lawrence's comments tonight can be taken on board, and anybody else in the wider community who's got comments on the permanent program could make them in the coming months, because we want that to be as good as it can possibly be for the future of our streets. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. Councillor Landers?
Yeah, I'd like to echo those thoughts, and also like to congratulate Simon and his team on the great job they've done through very difficult times. It's really tough out there at the moment, and we're reading headlines in the age that we will probably have a longer lockdown. So I want to thank very much the City of Yarra and their sensitivity to the traders in looking to delay the costs if that lockdown is extended. And we've seen great examples of implementation, and I'm hoping that some of those implementations will be extended long term as permanent features of our community. So I commend this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landers. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? I'll put it to the vote then. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Now we come to our next item, which is coming shortly. I believe it's item 9, which is petitions and joint letters, if I remember rightly. Until I can pull up my...
No, Mayor, notices of motion, of which there are none.
Notices of motion, thank you. Sorry, just give me a moment till I bring up my schedule. Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. So item 9, notices of motion, there are none listed. So item 10, petitions and joint letters. Councillors, are there any petitions or joint letters to table tonight? No. We will go now to questions without notice. Councillors, are there any questions without notice? Councillor O'Brien, and then I'll go to Councillor Landers, then Councillor Crossland.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering if we have any update on the 15th of September 2020 resolution of Council regarding push notifications, and if that brief report will be coming to Council soon.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Would that be a question for Mr. McAleary?
Mr. Gosling, push notifications.
I think Mr. McAleary is happy to answer it.
I'll take that. I will take that on notice, Councillor O'Brien, and commit to a response in time for the next council meeting. That was a just from memory for people watching. It was to do with I think planning applications and you know, it's an IT related question. So I'll take charge of getting an answer from elsewhere in the organisation as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McAleary.
Thank you.
Councillor Landers.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, my question to officers is on behalf of residents of Richmond, in particular development pressures in and around the areas of Burnley and around Church Street, and the contest with established residential areas, and the negative impact on the existing residences. A question I want to put is around the protection of residential amenity where there is direct abutting commercial zoning, and what safeguards are there to mitigate adverse intrusion and ensuring strategic objectives in these pockets that include but not limited to appropriate scale that is sensitive to the abutting residential precinct.
Mayor, in the absence of Mr. Phillips has copied the question, and he said he will provide an answer copied to all councillors, but he's not here right now. And Miss Osborne has also left because she's got family duties to look after. So I can only take the question on notice, and I'll give the reply tomorrow through Mr. Phillips.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wagner. Thank you. Councillor Crossland.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is in regards to the COVID-19 vaccine rollout and pandemic response, and I've got a little prelude to it as well. The COVID-19 pandemic that is sweeping the world has impacted everyone, from significant lives lost to the impact on our way of life. The impact is completely profound. Personally, I've lost multiple family members to COVID-19, and there are many people that are hurting and will continue to be impacted by the pandemic on multiple fronts for years to come. It's been amazing to see how far we've come locally in terms of the resilience of our community and the organisation's ability to respond from the many initiatives that have been introduced, such as grants to support businesses and community, and the introduction of parklets for outdoor dining, and the support of bike pop-up lanes, just to name a few things. And on an international front, the rapid development of numerous vaccines is truly inspiring. However, at a national level, the management and response to the pandemic has been problematic. There's been numerous outbreaks, the problematic hotel quarantine program, and the vaccine rollout. And here we are again in lockdown, which is significantly impacting the local community financially, emotionally, and psychologically. To this, my question is to Mr. Gosling. If you could please outline what measures that Council has undertaken to assist and make itself available for mass vaccination for the Yarra community in terms of offices and facilities, and when and how this offer of assistance has been responded to, both prior to the current lockdown and since the start of the current lockdown, and whether you feel there is anything further that Council could undertake to further assist with the rollout of the vaccinations at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Crosland. Mr. Gosling?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. And Councillor Crosland, I just wanted to extend my personal condolences to your family on the loss. Obviously, COVID-19 has had a profound worldwide impact, and to hear stories of personal loss, of course, makes it very real for Yarra. So thank you for sharing that with us, and as I said, my sincere condolences. Firstly, Council's response to the pandemic has been very extensive, and without trying to remind councillors of all of the history of what council has done with respect to pandemic response, we only have to go back not very far to the very extensive response, particularly with respect to the public housing towers and the extensive work that was done in partnership with our community health agencies such as CoHealth and North Richmond Community Health, of course, and the range of state partners that responded to the pandemic particularly in terms of testing and food and material aid that was required. Council provided a whole range of support there, including food deliveries. Of course, there was support for health concierge work, administration work, and a whole range of other things that happened in partnership, as well as the $7.46 million package, which included a range of grants for particularly vulnerable communities. With respect to the vaccine rollout, specifically, there has been a series of offers out there, particularly for approved providers of the vaccine rollout, and so those offers have included things such as access to council venues, support for administration, even support for things like traffic management if it was required, and more recently, certainly nursing support for the actual administration of the vaccine itself. As I have advised councillors formally before, council is unable to provide that service directly, and that's partly because of the model that that the federal government have rolled out, but it's also quite a lot to do with the supply of vaccine, which has, as Councillor Crossan has alluded to, has been somewhat limited, certainly until very recently. I'm pleased to report that as of today, we've actually signed off on the MOU with our partner at North Richmond Community Health, and as of tomorrow morning, we will actually be deploying immunisation nurses to support the rollout of vaccines within particularly the Richmond estate and public housing tower area. Of course, taking into account that the various eligibilities that are required. With respect to a whole range of other supports that are still continuing, we've reactivated our emergency management team. Councillors would be aware that we are still providing emergency food and material support to others that are isolating in terms of the current lockdown rollout. But I think in terms of your second question and what else could council do, really there isn't a lot else that we can do in the current model. Certainly if the federal government was to change the way in which things occurred, I have made some statements before that councils, I think local government is reasonably well placed to support, given that immunisation services are part of our remit. But within the current model, we are limited to the offers that we have put out at the moment. Certainly council facilities and council resources are there on standby should we get further requests, and we're certainly happy to evaluate those as they come in.
Thank you for that very thorough answer, Mr. Gosling. Councillors, are there any other questions without notice? Councillor Stone.
Thank you. I think this is to Mr. Levers, Director of City Works. We've had a number of approaches from community members now about the Linear Park bike trail and the fact that Ray Street doesn't have a priority bike crossing, unlike the two other crossings, and this is causing confusion for vehicles and bikes alike. I know officers have been working on this. The problem is that the crossing needs to be elevated. To do that, you'd need to remove the heritage rail lines in the road that are embedded in the road, and that's been problematic from a heritage perspective. So we're a little bit stuck and it needs a solution. I guess I'm wondering if Mr. Levers can give us any sense of when we might have a solution so that this can be implemented as a priority crossing, or if there is no solution. That would be good to know as well.
Thank you, Councillor Stone.
Through you, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Stone, for the question. Yeah, there's been a fair bit of history, and I understand there's community angst around this, and I understand as well that officers have met with at least some, I think many of those community representatives to explain some of the complexity of that site. They're currently and still working on options to try and address that conflict there. I'm a bit loath to give you a time frame, if I'm honest, right at the moment. But I will re-engage, and it's been probably a week or two since I've spoken to officers about the issue, but I will re-engage with them and come back and provide advice to councillors in the next week or so.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Levers. Any further questions about notice? No. I'll move on then to delegates' reports. There are three that I know of, and I'll start with Councillor Stone. You have one from the Active Ageing Advisory Committee and the Environment Advisory Committee, and then one from Councillor O'Brien from the Heritage Advisory Committee.
Thank you. I'll read through these because I know there's a group of people who've been waiting all night for the item that's on next. I just want to acknowledge the new Active Ageing Advisory Group, which Council endorsed on the 2nd of February. It's a highly engaged and engaging group with a very wide range of valuable experiences to provide guidance to Council on the implementation of our active and healthy ageing strategy. I've just pointed out a couple of things that they've been engaged in this year, but also the fact that they're very interested in the results of the Aged Care Royal Commission, and when we called for a working group to look at this, all but one put up their hand to be in the working group. So that's how keen and interested they are. There's been examination of that, examination of the aged care reforms, concerns raised that seem to be universal across the system. And one of the best things about this group is that a couple of members were part of Yarra's deliberative panel on the future of our involvement in aged care services. So there's a lot of there's depth of experience and knowledge there. So I'll leave that there. I just really wanted to table it and to acknowledge the fantastic discussions that have been had and the optimism I have for this group, and move that Council note this delegates report.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Landers. Everyone's keen to second, but thank you, Councillor Landers. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you, Councillor Stone. You have a second one.
The second one, the Yarra Environment Advisory Committee, which has also met twice this year, but it's not that new. The two of the key issues they've discussed this year have been the Yarra River riparian corridor and whether this group could be involved in a project there. They've decided that the keen beans are going to go off and develop terms of reference and scope for such a project and just keep the committee informed. The second topic that's been discussed has been urban agriculture food security in Yarra. Councils will be aware, and especially Mr Gosling, that the COVID experience last year highlighted the extent of food insecurity in Yarra. Probably not a surprise to those who understand food systems, but probably a surprise to most of us. The work of this, the Yarra Food Network, was phenomenal in keeping people going last year, but the work that's going to be done now is on future shoring up of food security, focusing on urban agriculture, but the whole food system in Yarra and beyond. And that was of great interest to the committee, which has, of course, incorporated the Urban Agriculture Committee as well. I've got a little table there, you can read that. The other thing that backed up the interest in food security was double the demand for planter boxes in 2020. So I also move that this particular delegates report be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Stone. Can I have a seconder for that one? Thank you, Councillor Wade.
No.
Oh, certainly. Councillor O'Brien?
I'm just wondering, Councillor Stone, I'd just love some feedback on whether the nature strategy has been discussed at any length in the in this advisory committee, and any feedback on that would be great.
It was discussed briefly in relation to the Yarra riparian corridor, and Craig Lupton is working with that group on a project there, but it will be the subject of a future meeting. There'll be a focus on the nature strategy, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. A seconder for this motion to table. Thank you, Councillor Wade. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Councillor O'Brien, you have a Heritage Advisory Committee report.
Yes, sorry, I do have a very lengthy report, and I hope everyone will have an opportunity to read it at some point, but I think the pertinent points to raise excuse me, were the discussions on heritage strategy budget, and basically the Heritage Advisory Committee, Yarra adopted the heritage strategy in November 2019 and agreed to provide resources to form a whole heritage department to manage Yarra's significant heritage. There was a request to fund and support several new staff positions in terms of heritage. These positions were to implement heritage training on a regular basis for staff and to promote Yarra's significant heritage importance, to implement actions coming out of the framework for best practice management of Council's own heritage assets, which has been completed this year. Also, Heritage Projects Officer to implement projects listed in the Heritage Strategy, and a Heritage Advisor to provide advice to planning staff and the community. Basically, we only have, I've got to make a correction in this report actually. It was discussed we only have one Heritage Officer, yet we've got 15 to 20 statutory planning staff. Heritage advice is regularly sourced externally. More than 60% of Yarra is covered by heritage overlays, hence there is a need for heritage trained officers in council. The committee was also of the view that there is a need to have more trained, we've lost a line there. Anyway, basically the point is we're farming out a lot of this work, and we think we could better heritage funded, better funding for our heritage department would be of great use. Oh, hang on, here I see why I've lost that. So we often farm them out rather than employing internal staff. We often farm out outside consultants on contracts for projects and works. The other thing that I would like to raise with you, apart from please read the report, but we had an update on the completion of the Austral Theatre 3D photography, which was part of a motion from the previous council, where we had agreed that there shouldn't be planning permissions around these theatres. These three, we only had 3 heritage significant, which is rare in any municipality to have 3 heritage theatres remaining in Yarra. We had the 3 in Yarra, and because we didn't support some protections on that, basically we've lost them all. However, we have completed the Austral Theatre 3D photography to preserve what was there once. But the other 2 theatres were lost before we could do that 3D photography. So that was a great missed opportunity, in my opinion. Anyway, there's a whole lot of stuff in that heritage report, and I please urge you to read it. The committee is doing great work, and I just request that Council note this delegates report and thank committee members for their contributions, expertise, time and advice to Council on heritage matters.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Can I ask for a seconder for this motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Are there any other delegates' reports? No, in that case, we'll come to general business, and I have listed here one item of general business from Councillor Landers.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a motion that I'd like to put in reference to the motion that was tabled on the 18th of May 2021. And I believe we have many people many residents from the community who would like to talk to this and express themselves. So I'm hoping that I will have a seconder to allow that to take place.
Would you just like to state the subject of the motion? It's in relation to one from last week, but just for the members of the public to understand what is submitted.
So briefly, this motion seeks to address some of the divisive feelings and the distress from some members of the community in relation to that particular motion. And I would like to sort of recommit to Yarra Council's ethos around welcoming refugees and its commitment to our sense of multicultural community and inclusiveness.
Okay, thank you. Can I seek a seconder for this motion?
Mayor, I wonder if you might bear with me, if you would ask Councillor Landers to actually state the motion, because it doesn't appear in the agenda and anyone watching wouldn't actually know what it is that we're seeking a seconder about.
Okay, so when you say state the motion, you mean read the words of the motion?
That would be ideal, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Landers.
So the Yarra City Council acknowledges and regrets the distress and division that the motion headed Motion of Solidarity 18th of May 2021 has caused in the Yarra community, recommits to its status as a refugee welcome zone and recommits to welcome refugees into the community and to uphold the human rights of refugees and to show compassion and enhance cultural and religious diversity in the community. Notes that on Friday the 21st May 2021, a welcome ceasefire was declared between the Israeli government and Hamas, opposes any violence, especially when it impacts innocent civilians, and resolves that we stand in solidarity with members of our community who have been affected by violence at home and in other parts of the world, and value and are committed to promoting the cultural, linguistic and religious diversity, community harmony and respect of all.
Thank you, Councillor Landers. Now, Deputy Mayor, you had your hand up, but I don't see you now. Yep. Are you happy to second this motion? Great, thank you. So we have a number of people in the public to make submissions to this item, and the first person I will invite forward is Jonathan Morris. Jonathan, thank you. You've been waiting there patiently the whole time. If you could turn your microphone on, I believe it is on. I can't hear you at the moment. I might go to the next submitter and then return to you, Jonathan, so that you can see if you can work out your audio. I have Theodore Latkin next. Theodore?
Yes,
Ted.
I'm here.
Hello.
Okay.
Welcome, thank you.
My name is Ted Lapkin, and I reside in Fitzroy. One of the most salient lessons to be drawn from Jewish history is that when people say they're going to kill you, take them at their word. Hamas, the Palestinian branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, put those sentiments into action last month by firing thousands of rockets at Israeli towns and cities. Hamas makes no bones about its worldview. Its official covenant calls not only for Israel's destruction, but for the murder of every Jew on the planet. Don't take my word for it. It's all there in the covenant's preamble and Articles 7, 13, and 35. But it's not only the Jews. Since seizing absolute power at gunpoint in 2007, Hamas has ruled roughshod over Gaza. 2 years ago, the European Union condemned arrests and violence by Hamas security forces against protesters, including journalists. In its annual human rights report for 2020, the U.S. State Department described how Hamas maintains its grip on power through arbitrary killings, systematic torture, and arbitrary detention. Hamas seeks to recreate an Islamic caliphate governed by the precepts of Sharia law, the same Sharia law that reduces the legal weight of a woman's sworn testimony to half that of a man's, the same Sharia that imposes the death penalty on Muslims who choose to leave Islam, the same Sharia whose stance on homosexuality was illustrated by a Newsweek article that ran several years ago under the headline, Hamas executes prominent commander after accusations of gay sex. One would think that the uber-woke members of this council would find such Neanderthalic brutality abhorrent. But then these facts don't matter to the less than magnificent 7 who voted in favor of this council's Gaza resolution a fortnight ago. At least not enough to warrant any public criticism of Hamas. Never mind the imbecility of a local government pontificating on a matter of foreign relations halfway around the globe, especially when that same council can't even collect the rubbish to the satisfaction of its ratepayers. Stephen Jolly declared that the fighting in Gaza is, quote, not a conflict between equals, to which I respond, and a damn good thing. The majority of this council has succumbed to the delusion that equates casualty figures with righteousness. By that measure, the Nazis must have been the good guys because 430,000 civilians were killed by the Allied bombing of Germany, as opposed to only 70,000 British killed by the Luftwaffe. So I ask, how many more dead Jews are required to satisfy your warped sense of equity? How many Iron Dome missile defense batteries should Israel deactivate to achieve the balanced body count you deem fair? Come to think of it, I don't care. To paraphrase American TV host Bill Maher, in 1945, people said, we don't understand why Europe's Jews went meekly to the slaughter. In 2021, the city of Yarra said, we don't understand why Israeli Jews won't go meekly to the slaughter. Well, I have news for those who voted yes on that Gaza resolution. Israel takes the aspiring genocidaires of Hamas at their word. Without hesitation or apology, the Jewish state will defend its people against jihadi barbarians who seek to inflict a second Shoah. If that offends your leftist sensibilities, so be it. It is elementary common sense, wrote George Orwell. If you hamper the war effort of one side, you automatically help that of the other. Stephen Jolly, Sophie Wade, Gabrielle de Vietri, Bridget O'Brien, Anna Mohammed, Amanda Stone, and Claudia Nguyen have chosen sides. The side of medievalism over modernity, the side of theocracy over democracy, the side of benighted fanaticism over enlightened humanism. They make demands of the Jews that they wouldn't dream of applying to any other ethnic group. There's a word for that bigoted double standard. It begins with the prefix anti and ends with the suffix ism. Even the 7 dwarves who dominate this council should be able to fill in the blank.
I think we'll wrap up in 30 seconds, and if you could speak directly to the motion.
I'm done. I've said my piece.
Thank you for being with us tonight, Theodore. My next speaker is Sasha Beatner.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Firstly, I'd like to thank Councillor Landis for bringing forth this motion and giving voice to the members of the community that the previous motion explicitly excluded. The previous motion passed promoted division, hatred and anger within the community, and that's already been referenced this evening by Councillor Jolly. I particularly want to talk about the distress and the anguish that the previous motion that's caused to myself, my family, the Yarra Jewish community and the Yarra Israeli community. To realise, and then for it to be crystallised, that the council that represents you actually has no interest in representing or acknowledging you based on your ethnicity and your religious beliefs is absolutely disgraceful. Less than 2 weeks ago, a number of you marched in the Pride Parade and you held up a banner that said, Yarra City Council, we draw pride and strength from our diversity. When you passed that motion 2 weeks ago, you proved that this was a blatant lie. You failed your duty as a council to be inclusive and to respect all of your constituents. The language that's been used by councillors surrounding this issue has been crude, it's been disrespectful, antagonistic and absolutely unacceptable. You've made me feel ashamed as a Jewish person to live in the city of Yarra. And as a person of Jewish faith, I do not feel as though I'm welcome or supported here. If it was your intention that this motion was to eliminate the Jewish community from Yarra 2 weeks ago, then you're really succeeding. Councillor Landis' motion is inclusive and it truly reflects the diversity within our community. It promotes harmony and peace rather than division. In such difficult and challenging times, is really that too much to ask? Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution tonight. Jonathan Morris, have you been able to sort out your audio? I'm afraid I can't hear you. I still can't hear you, so I might go to the next person, which is Mark Suffer.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good evening.
I never thought I'd be having to talk at a council meeting to defend my religion, my heritage, and to stand up for my identity. 2 weeks ago, at this very meeting, I and many others in the Yarra Jewish and Israeli community felt personally attacked. We felt you entered into a conflict you had no right entering. In fact, the only survey done on the topic in the 1,300 plus member Yarra Residents Collective voted to the tune of more than 95% that council should never ever have involved themselves in this. 95% of your constituents. You ignored us. You neglected the Israeli and Jewish community in Yarra. Your lack of inclusion and your lack of consideration remains unforgivable. I thank Councillor Landers for putting forward this motion, which goes only a very small way to responding to the pain that you've caused. My family has a 70+ year connection to Yarra, living and working here, and making a significant contribution to the community. My family was very lucky to come to Australia, arriving shortly after the Second World War, where we lost many family members amongst the millions of Jews that died. The rest of my family that did survive the war moved to Israel, which was very primitive at the time as a country of less than a couple of years old. And they weren't able to provide the medical support that my late auntie needed, who had contracted polio in Germany after the war. So the only reason I am here is because Australia and the city of Yarra opened their arms to allow my family here. And what you did last week went against the very fibre, the very ethos of this council, and the pain that you have inflicted on me and my family is unforgivable. I want to touch on regret. It's a very important word. The first step in acknowledging any problem is recognising that there is one. What happened has caused enormous distress. It's caused enormous distress to the community. Not just the community in Yarra, but the Jewish and Israeli community more broadly. You cannot acknowledge what you've done without regretting it. You have caused division at a time when our community needs bringing together. You must regret what you've done. You must regret listening to members of the Jewish community and the Israeli community tonight to hear the pain that you have inflicted upon us. I don't want to feel ostracized in my own community. I don't want to feel vilified in my own community. But that is what you did. That is what you did. And those names that Ted mentioned will be forever in black and white because that is what you did. I offer my support to Councillor Landers' motion that refers explicitly to the regret that the previous motion has caused to me and to many other members of the community.
Thank you for your submission. I'll invite Kedem Leddy to speak now, and if I could just remind submitters to address the motion directly, that would be appropriate and appreciated. Thank you for joining us today, Kedem.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to start by saying I support the motion, and I think it for several reasons, mainly because it holds recovery and restoration at the core of it, recovery of trust, and restoration of a value-based conversation. And in more details, I'd say I support it because I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's the only way to ensure that we value human rights above political agenda by making a clear statement to that effect. Over the past 2 weeks, the original motion has the jolly motion, and not jolly as in happiness, has led to division and polarization. The reason being that it called for solidarity for only one side. It didn't acknowledge that innocent people have suffered on both sides in this round and previous rounds of the conflict. It highlighted numbers of people, like a football game, which almost begs a morbid question. Would the motion not have been raised if the numbers were equal? If there were 200 and 200 people killed, would Jolly then not raise it? Innocent people died on both sides, and I can attest to that on a personal basis. Friends of mine were exposed to direct violence, a friend was killed, and myself being nearby a suicide bombing just an hour before. My friends and myself were not decision makers. We were not politicians, and we were not in armed service. We were just civilians in a country that wants to survive. Acknowledging the suffering of only one side neglects this, and de facto enshrines the view that it is acceptable. Therefore, we need to be diligent in expressing solidarity for all loss of innocent life. The second point is that the City of Yarra should first of all cater for its community. The way the motion was raised and approved 2 weeks ago created significant stress in the community, as highlighted by the speakers before me. It was brash and sneaky, using an emergency resolution. The speakers tonight attest to that, and you can see tonight when raised properly, what voices come from the community. I'll extend to that at no point was an attempt by Jolly, by the initiator of the motion, to engage the community. He only cited general support, and we don't see any of that tonight. We don't even see any sign that his support came from the City of Yarra, from the Palestinians of Yarra that he claimed he cares for. Moreover, Jolly made a comment that he said he would have raised the motion even if he did not have any support. You do not get more clear in the sense that you're raising a political, personal agenda. Or in other words, he preferred an international agenda over the local community. And this motion can correct it. This motion can put forward a value-based conversation, can balance it, can restore some of the stress that was created. And as Mark mentioned, the survey was 137 people against a motion in that sense, and only 7 in favor. That is 95%. You don't get more clear numbers than that. So I call the council to vote in favor of the motion that the Landers raised, and to regain its position as a value-based council. Thank you.
Thank you, Kedem. Next on the list, Michelle Saviki. Is that the correct pronunciation of your first name?
It's actually Michal, but that's fine.
Michal.
Not a problem.
My apologies.
That's okay. Good evening, everybody. I would like to start by stating my support for Councillor Landy's motion. I'm Jewish. I have 4 children. My brother and many other members of my family members live in Israel. I was absolutely appalled and disappointed by the disgraceful motion, like others, that the council passed 2 weeks ago. For a council that prides itself on inclusion and inclusiveness in every aspect of your ambition, you clearly just didn't show you practiced what you preached. This motion has been put forward in a very small but important step in acknowledging the pain and suffering that is imposed on us. 2 weeks ago, you failed to acknowledge we existed. You failed to acknowledge our pain, our suffering, the fear of our Israeli brothers and sisters that had more than 4,000 rockets fired at them, the fear of the 400% rise in anti-Semitism globally, including incidents as close as home as Brunswick, and you failed to show that you cared. The divisive and inclusive motion passed by you was wrong. It divided the community. It showed your true political colours were put ahead of your community's well-being. You have done what very well may be irreparable damage to the Jewish community in Yarra, and I would suggest that you reflect on your bias, you reflect on the pain you have caused your community, and consider what it is your community wants you guys to focus on. I don't believe that this is it. I hope to never ever have to be here again speaking on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Next up, I have Romy Zingia. Romy, I hope I pronounced your surname correctly.
That'll do. Thank you, Mayor and councillors. I would like to start by stating my support for the motion put forward by Councillor Landis. I would like to express my disappointment in the hasty and poorly thought out motion passed and then rescinded at last council's meeting on the escalating violence in the Middle East. This motion deeply impacted the local community and caused Yarra residents significant distress, as you've already heard. I am Australian, I am Jewish, I have family in Israel, and I have lived there for extended periods of my adult life. I have personally been bombed while sleeping in my home. I have been shot at by snipers while working at my job. I have also spent every weekend whilst living in Israel protesting at the Gaza border against the occupation of Gaza by settlers. I have also experienced anti-Semitism my whole life living in Melbourne, which is on the rise across media platforms and in communities, and I have seen people opportunistically equate being Jewish to condoning or supporting this horrific conflict, or using this time to speak out with anti-Semitic sentiment. I do not wish to raise my child in a community where this kind of behaviour is given room to raise its ugly head, where divisive and alienating statements are made by council, or that any residents should have fear for their safety irrespective of their background. I am the descendant of Holocaust survivors. My grandmother, who is 101, sits in her home with that tattoo from Auschwitz to remind us that this is not history. These issues are current, and we need to do all that we can to create a connected and safe community for all people from all walks of life, cultures, genders, languages and religions. I am pleased and reassured to see this formally recognised in today's motion on the same topic, affirming our commitment to community's connectedness. I would also like noted with respect that despite my efforts to engage with councillors and mayor on this topic via phone and email, I was unable to successfully reach them apart from Councillor Landis. Although the mayor did return my calls, I am disappointed that it was not followed through. This is indeed symptomatic of this council's perceived lack of authentic community engagement. Councillors have loud and powerful voices in our community, and with that comes great responsibility. First, speak and act in accordance with the Code of Conduct. Secondly, to embody the City of Yarra's values. And thirdly, and most importantly, with the safety and inclusivity of its residents front and centre. When we use statistics to deliver our message on sensitive topics such as this, we are using evidence to develop an argument. If we seek to create community cohesion, safety and connection, this kind of messaging must be avoided as it is inherently divisive. With this in mind, going forward, I would like to encourage councillors to focus on local issues and local solutions, and consistently, transparently and authentically engage as is required by the Local Government Act 2020. I urge you to vote in favour of this motion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for speaking with us today, Romy. Aaron Promnitz, I have you on my list next. Good evening.
Thanks, Gabrielle. As I stated at the last meeting, I'm not Jewish and not Israeli. I also want to acknowledge that this motion, or the last motion, sorry, was led by councillors and not my council staff who had no input into the motion, which I think is worth mentioning given the hard time that I heard that they were given. Second to that, I think Ed Crossland was mentioned as supporting the motion last time, which is incorrect. So I just wanted to mention for Ed that he didn't vote that way last time. I wanted to mention again, this affected my direct neighbours, some who I live directly next to within my body corporate, and friends within the neighbourhood, some people who I'm very close to. Once again, I can't believe I'm talking about Israel versus Palestine or a conflict from the Middle East in Australia. We're inclusive and we embrace all cultures, but we don't bring their conflicts with us as a society. We can talk about them, we can be open about them, but we have a sense of an appropriate time and place and how we do it. We're not the sort of society, for example, where we have to fence sports fans from each other because of conflicts elsewhere, because we dramatise, and it's a very serious situation over there, don't get me wrong, but dramatise particularly for a political stance to the point where it divides the community somewhere in Yarra. We don't need that. The angst and division was completely unnecessary. It did cause real hurt. The council would be correct in passing this motion with the emphasis on regret with the impact that the motion 2 weeks ago caused. Every councillor or resident of Australia, for that matter, is entitled to have their own personal view, but for a council focused on local matters, let's be clear about what a council's for. We don't have the Department of Foreign Affairs within Yarra for a good reason. We're focused on local matters. There's a time and a place for these discussions to take place. We've got diplomats within the society for people with varying views and different views, which I'm aware exist within the council. It doesn't mean that the council's the appropriate place to have that discussion. And especially not to be used as a political vehicle. It was inappropriate for the council to do that, and as councils are already aware, a significant portion, in fact a vast majority from the surveying which we did of constituents, regardless of their view, would prefer that the council focused on local issues and stayed out of politics elsewhere. That's for another forum. We need to be inclusive of all Yarra residents, regardless of what our political views may be, but as councillors, I think you just need to be inclusive of all Yarra residents, not repeat this mistake. So there's an opportunity tonight to right or wrong, pass the motion as it's currently worded, and at least go some way to making amends with my neighbours and the wider community who are insulted and hurt by this. Thank you.
Thank you for your submission, Adam. I have next Davir Abramovich from the Anti-Defamation Commission. Thank you for being with us.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Davir Abramovich. I'm chairman of the Anti-Defamation Commission, which is Australia's leading civil rights organisation, established in 1979 to combat anti-Semitism, Holocaust denial, and all forms of hate. I will say tonight what this proposed motion doesn't say. And that is that what took place 2 weeks ago in these chambers was a new low in local politics. It was a moral travesty, a shameful day for the Yarra City Council, and a sad occasion for our state and democracy. The undeniably one-sided motion, chock full of the condemnation and demonization of Israel, discredited the council, and in the process sent an unmistakable message to Israelis and Jews living in the area. You cannot rely on the Yarra City Council to stand up and represent your concerns. In other words, you don't count. In this country, we are all equal before the law and are gifted with the same rights. But within the chambers of the Yarra City Council on that day, Israelis and Jews, some who came to this country to escape Hitler's final solution, were treated as second-class citizens, not worthy of the Council's solidarity, sympathy, support, care, and affection. This is double standards, this is discrimination, and this is something I never thought I'd see. And I ask, is this what local councils have become, where being Jewish or Israeli means that you are erased? Since when is being different or connected to your homeland a liability? At a time of a surge of anti-Semitism in our nation, when young Jews at schools and universities are being harassed and victimized for simply being Jewish or because of their association with Israel, this motion only added to the toxic atmosphere which is spreading like wildfire throughout this nation, especially since the outbreak of the recent conflict between Israel and Hamas, and did nothing to advance the cause of ethnic and religious harmony here. In fact, all it did was to set back community relations. I also saw Councillor Joly publicly propose a motion using Holocaust-related language with terms such as genocidal to condemn Israel as an evil state that is hell-bent on exterminating the Palestinian people. It is hard to express the hurt such hateful language would have caused Holocaust survivors who lost children and entire families to the Nazi death machine. But back to this motion. The motion
Can I just
Can I finish?
Sorry, just to let you know, I'll allow you to finish, but just to let you know that motion was not proposed in the chamber.
But it was raised by a councillor publicly. The motion failed to address legitimate Israeli security concerns. It showed willful blindness to the terrorist nature of Hamas and its repressive rule over the people of Gaza, and it glossed over the myriad of rockets that have rained down on Israeli civilians. All it did was to hand a victory to those who wish to destroy Israel. As the chairman of one of the nation's most respected civil rights organizations, I would say that we've never really seen anything quite like this before. Instead of building bridges between various communities in our state, this council sought to divide us. Instead of embracing everyone, this council excluded part of the community. I have never been so alarmed about the civic health of our country. All good people dream of a two-state solution and peace between Israelis and Palestinians. But that solution will not come about with motions that foment distrust between local communities, that cultivate distance, and which single out and demonize Israelis living here, and those Jews who love and support Israel. Faced with an emotional and explosive topic such as the recent conflict, the Council could have shown young people how respectful and inclusive debate happens. It could have stepped up and modeled moral leadership, but it overlooked the pain that resulted from the deeply cynical motion, let alone the hostility of the motion itself to the essence of modern Jewish identity. That lack of empathy, I want you to know, was a punch in the gut felt by so many who contacted me, who live in your area, and those here in Victoria and across the country. In his Light on the Hill speech, Ben chiefly spoke of bringing something better to the people. With that motion, the Yarra City Council failed on all fronts. The anguish you caused by your actions and the alienation it has sown among the Jewish and Israeli members in your area and beyond will be hard to repair. So, to conclude, I urge you to demonstrate the humility needed to apologize for your lapse in judgment, to engage the Israeli and Jewish community, to hear their pain, and to help with the healing. And yes, I support the motion by Councillor Landis. Thank you.
Thank you for your submission and for speaking to it tonight. I might return to Jonathan Morris to see if you've been able to...
Is that working now? Is it working? Hallelujah.
Yes.
My name is Jonathan Morris and I live in Clifton Hill. I've been a socialist for over 5 decades, so I was disturbed when I discovered that the person who calls himself a socialist proposed a motion to council that was unbalanced and completely disregarded the rights of the Israeli working class. I understand he's also left the meeting for some reason. Furthermore, the motion, which expressed solidarity with Yarra-based Palestinians, expressed no solidarity with Yarra-based Israeli and Jewish residents who have family in Israel. The Palestinian people have suffered greatly over the decades at the hands of Israel, at the moment in the occupation of the West Bank, but also under the Ottoman Turks, Jordan, Egypt, and now Hamas. In 1948, many Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes. Many Palestinian civilians were killed at Deir Yassin and other locations during that conflict, as well as in attacks carried out during the previous decades. However, the Israeli people have also suffered. In 1948, Jews were victims of atrocities with many Jewish civilians killed at Gush Etzion and other locations, as well as from Palestinian Arab attacks since the 1920s. Jews were expelled from parts of Palestine annexed by Jordan, including Sheikh Jarrah. In the recent conflict, many more Palestinians and Jews were killed, but not for want of trying by Hamas. If a hospital had been hit by one of the 4,000 plus rockets fired at Israeli civilians, would the supporters of Council's resolution be satisfied that equity in deaths had been achieved? The Hamas covenant is clearly a racist document using the vilest of anti-Semitic language. On August 10, 2012, Ahmed Bar, Deputy Speaker of the Hamas Parliament, stated in a sermon, "If the enemy sets foot on a single square inch of Islamic land, jihad becomes an individual duty incumbent on every Muslim. Why? In order to annihilate those Jews. O Allah, destroy the Jews and their supporters, Oh Allah, destroy the Americans and their supporters. Oh Allah, count them one by one and kill them all without leaving a single one.
Can I just ask, in reference to the statements by other speakers, that this motion seeks to repair some divisions, that perhaps it's more appropriate to speak directly to the motion?
Right. Well, yeah. So I'll sum
I
up.
understand your point.
Yeah. I'll sum up. So, in condemning Israel while ignoring Hamas's crimes against humanity, Council can be seen to condone those crimes. I call on Council to support this motion and to support the rights of all people in Israel, Palestine, to live in peace and security without the threat of violence and annihilation. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and thank you for joining us here tonight. I have one last submission from Eitan Sedlinski. Are you with us tonight?
Mayor, I don't believe Eitan has joined us this evening.
Okay, thank you. I'll draw the public submissions to a close. I'll now ask Councillor Landers to speak to your motion, please.
Thank you, Mayor, but I'd just like to, before I do that, just point of correction. The first speaker mentioned Councillor Nguyen and Councillor Mohammed as supporting the motion when they did not. They were not present when the motion was tabled, so they were not party to that particular motion. So I'd just like that correction to be noted. Look, I wrote that I was very proud to be putting this motion and giving a voice to Yarra's Jewish community, but I've scrubbed it out and I've said it's very sad. Listening to the speakers tonight, I really found it, I'm finding this whole thing very emotional, I must tell you. I'd like to feel that Council's resolutions are inclusive, are about bringing people together and not dividing and not wedging people apart as we've seen tonight. I think City of Yarra has a very proud ethos, towards inclusive acceptance of all religions and of refugees and asylum seekers, and celebrating the rich tapestry within our diverse community. It should be, and does, I hope, provide a safe space for its residents and values promoting cultural, linguistic and religious diversity, community harmony and respect for all. Respect for all. And it's in this context that I'm hoping tonight's motion recognises and regrets the division that the motion, the 18th of May, has caused, but can reaffirm its commitment to inclusion for all its citizens. I'd like to thank very much the Jewish community of Yarra, who have been wonderful in helping work through the challenging issue for them. And I'd also like to recognise and thank my colleagues, and I would like to thank Councillor Wade, who have assisted to find a way forward. I think it's really important that we can find a way forward, put this behind us and move on. So I commend this motion to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landers. Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak to this motion?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Look, I wasn't present when the motion went up 2 weeks ago, but I'd like to acknowledge the pain that has come through tonight and particularly over the past 2 weeks. I too come from a family of refugees who escaped persecution. I had a family member who died in the process, so I'd just like to reiterate that Yarra supports our diverse communities and I support this motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? I'll put it to the vote then. All those in favour? Thank you. That is carried.
Thank you. And thank you very much to I'm very teary.
thank you to all the members of the public for coming forward and sticking with us tonight. I know it's late, and I appreciate the time that you've put into speaking with us in what is a very difficult subject for you all. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Now, we don't have any urgent business for tonight, and so on that note, I will declare at 10:02 this meeting closed. And Councillor Landers, if you'd like to stay on the line or have a talk afterwards, then it's always a bit silent in the aftermath of an online meeting, so please do stay online. But thank you to members of the public for joining us tonight, and thank you to people for watching on our live webcast. I wish you a good night, and please stay safe, follow the rules, and hopefully we'll be out of this lockdown very soon, and I wish you all the best in the meantime.
Thank you.